Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday, February 2nd meeting of the Village Council for Yellow Springs. Judy, if you could call the roll.
Yes, DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Shue.
Here.
Brown.
Yes.
Samir.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Also present are Village Manager Johnny Burns, Assistant Village Manager Elise Giardulo, Police Chief Paige Burge, Village Solicitor Amy Blankenship, and Planning and Economic Development Coordinator Erin Arellano.
Okay. Next up is announcements. Are there any announcements?
I just wanted to share, today I attended a workshop that was held here in Yellow Springs. It was not too much above my head, but it was like counterintelligence, insider threat. We had the FBI here in town today, a retired gentleman from the Pentagon. And I learned a lot. I think maybe, and I'm kind of bringing it up because I think that this is something that's going to happen again, not on a routine, not like, but at least probably next year, if not sooner. And I think that it might be something that other people in the village, positions might get more use out of it, applicable use out of it than I did. But it was great. And it was cool to see something so high tier here in the village, for sure. So, yeah.
Cool. Let us know when the next one's scheduled, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure.
I had one other announcement. Pseudo in the sense of personal reflection versus an announcement for the village. But I had, earlier this morning, I attended the Interfaith Community Gathering with prayer in support of our neighbors in Springfield. There appeared to be 1,000 people there from all walks of life, faith, simply showing up together quietly around a shared sense of purpose. As many here know, temporary protected status ends tomorrow at midnight. That reality brings a great deal of uncertainty and emotional weight for a lot of us in this room and people across the region. I wanted to acknowledge that and the reality of the situation that is coming this way. And also to name and express how grateful I am to live in a community like Yellow Springs, where we have shared values and understanding, the importance of decency and of paying attention beyond just our borders and of holding each other close, even when we are not the ones directly affected. Also this weekend, Council Vice President Angie and I were able to attend the Progressive Governance Academy in Columbus, Ohio. We discussed topics such as sanctuary cities, housing, tenant rights, progressive tax policy. But what it really did was serve as a reminder and, again, a moment of appreciation for this village and the foundation that it's built upon and the potential that it has moving forward. And so this isn't a policy statement that I'm making right now, but it is a moment of awareness that I think deserves our attention and a little bit of space, and a reminder that as we continue to work on the village's vision and values, work that is on tonight's agenda, that this is exactly why we do it. And this is what guides us moving forward together as a community. Thank you.
Any other announcements? I guess I have to do, Johnny, I didn't know he was sitting here, but Brian, happy birthday. Brian House's birthday is my understanding, right? Yeah. Happy birthday.
And he is oldest.
He's the oldest.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, Johnny's just coming up today, so.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It's my kid's birthday today, too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we good on announcements? All right. Next up is the consent agenda. And just as a reminder, we can take one motion to approve all those items if someone so chooses. So can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve all the items?
Second.
Great. Can we do all those in favor? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the review of the agenda. Are there any questions or suggestions for changes on the agenda? Okay, we're going to keep it moving. Petitions and communications. Angie, if you don't mind telling us which ones came.
Okay, so we had several regarding reopening Short Street. These letters were submitted by David Hergesheimer, Evelyn Lemers, Carol Katam, Chris Zerbukin. Those were the 4. And then Mitzi Miller wrote regarding Mills Lawn and traffic, Charlene Prestopino regarding Short Street presentation and comments, Dale Hotaling, keep Short Street closed, Barbara Mann regarding applying for AARP grant, Jason Levesque regarding traffic safety on Fairfield, and Relita Chambers regarding comment and suggestions to new council.
All right, thank you. So we're on to public hearings and legislation. If I could get a motion to waive the full reading of the emergency legislation, that would be great.
I move to waive the full reading.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Judy, if you wouldn't mind reading emergency reading of ordinance 2026-02 by title only.
This is approving a 2026 first quarter supplemental appropriation and declaring an emergency, Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Okay, so I think this is the one that's just the cleanup from the last time.
Cleanup from the last time.
And we have typically done a public hearing, so
But you first want to get that motion.
first we'll get a motion. All right? Can I get a motion?
Are you making a motion? Okay, oh yeah, you can. Okay, yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, thank you. All right, now, is this do you want to say a thing
Yeah,
about it
no,
briefly?
this was the furnace for 201 South Walnut that was, went out on us at the January 3rd. And this is also putting in reimbursement from Cresco for aid to construction back into the line item.
Great. So we don't have to, by law, open public hearings for emergency legislation, but we always do. So I'm going to open a public hearing in case anybody has any questions about this piece of legislation. Okay, seeing none. Any other questions from council? If you weren't here the last time, we talked about this and then we just didn't do the motions right. So now we're cleaning up. We already talked about it. Okay, so I guess all those in favor?
We've got to do a roll call on
Oh, we have
this,
to do a roll call on these
Yeah.
kind. On all emergencies?
on all ordinances.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, Samir,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Shu,
Yes.
DeBoer Leonard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one up, Judy, if you could read the first reading for ordinance 2026-03 by title only.
This is I'm sorry. This is repealing Chapter 220.01 Rules and Procedures of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new Chapter 220.01 Rules and Procedures.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Judy, do you want to frame this one, or?
Yeah, this is something that is done each time that there's a new council. The rules and procedures are reviewed. And so I've given you a red line, which is based on some fairly basic conversation that was had at the retreat. And then I did add some redlining based on, Angie had given me some feedback, and I realized, whoop, she's right, that some of the respecting village values section places need to change as well. So that was at the table tonight. And basically, I just cut some of the things that referred back to the values because some of those changed slightly, and also because this is an ordinance. Basically, it's like, it is the law that you will respect the values, and I think it's a little odd to be like, and here are the values you will now legally respect. So those values belong more properly in a resolution. So,
Okay. Are there any questions or?
So I, with reading the rules and procedures, especially process for addressing complaints against council members, I read it and it seems a little bit like inside investigations. So a complaint made by a citizen or village employee against any member of council will be conveyed to the clerk of council, okay? The clerk will direct the complaints made against the president of council to the vice president of council and will address all other complaints to the president of council. The public official directed to manage the complaint has the full authority to act at their discretion in a timely fashion. We have some shared HR stuff, and I would like for us to figure out a way that this doesn't seem like like an inside investigation, right? And I think that when we went over this last time, we didn't have as much HR or no HR at all. Judy, was it no HR or, I mean, barely HR is no HR.
effectively, no HR, yes.
Okay. So I would like for us to take the opportunity to kind of revisit this. I know that this isn't, this is not something we want to, kick down the road, but it needs to be addressed. Because I think that the language about, full discretion to the public official, the public official directed to manage the complaint has full authority to act at their discretion in a timely fashion, doesn't make me really comfortable. And so I'd like for there to be some kind of neutral party introduced, and I think that would be something that we could work through with shared services. Does that make sense?
Possibly, you're not employees, but I can totally check into it, find out what can and can't happen. So
Right.
I'll do that piece, and if council's comfortable with me sort of roping in HR and whoever else needs to be roped in, and then working with Carmen to come up with some new language, then we can set about doing that so that you can all at least look at the draft ahead of time, and comments can only come back to me, but yeah, we can get that out there.
Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that would be this would come back as a first ordinance with that change, or can that happen in the second version?
It's whether or not it's substantive. She's shaking that head, back there, I believe we're gonna have a new ordinance.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But still no reason not to also get any other comments you had, because then we can get the next version of it. So are there other things besides that one?
If you don't mind doing it this way, Gavin, it might be the most efficient way to just take it from the top, roll through the red lines, and if people object, we can, or have additions, we can just get those discussed and put in or taken out, as it were.
Okay. I think I was taking a stab at doing them all at once, but you wanna go through every one of them?
Well, I mean, if you take, so page one, there are a fair number.
How about by page? That's a good way.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can meet in the middle.
Page.
Okay, on the first page, is there anyone that has any questions about these shifts, mostly related to the values, and then the word changes and making a smaller case C? If I don't hear anything, I'm gonna keep moving. So then the next one, meetings start at, try to endeavor to end at 8:30, and then the limited topic change. Anybody have any questions about those? Or anything else that's not redlined but that you wanted to flag? Okay. On the next page, and I'll highlight this for community members, I don't know, one could argue the most substantial change that we discussed at the retreat that's in here is the idea of moving citizen concerns before public hearings. So that's the change that's on the table, is that citizen concerns would happen before the part that we're doing right now. Okay, moving on to the next page. The pieces around citizen participation and public hearings, seems like it's mostly sort of word choice stuff, but yeah, anybody have any questions or feedback about those? And then the last page is, yeah, changing one word and an S, and the last line. Anything else there?
No, this all looks like what we talked about at the work session, other than that, all that extra language you took out at the beginning, right? Or the first page. Yeah. Okay.
And we'll do a little review of the retreat later on, but it's on video too. If anybody wants to watch all of the context, you're welcome to. So I think we're good then, and Judy's going to come back to us and work with Carmen on that HR, the figuring out the right process for issues, and then we'll come back with a new ordinance next time. Okay, all right. We're going to keep on moving then. Judy, if you could read 2026-04.
This is adopting the updated 2025 Greene County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Johnny?
Yep, so this is, Greene County does this every 5 years. Myself and Brian was the two people that was voluntold, I believe, to do it. And we went through all the meetings, very painful meetings, but we got it all done. Everything that is on the list for flooding and other issues that we have in the village is part of this plan, to where if it's adopted with this plan, then we can apply for funding if problems happen. That's the reason why we need it passed.
Cool, thank you. Are there any questions from council? Okay.
I have a quick story real quick. So there's like, in the mitigation plan, it states seismic activity in Greene County and when. And so I was looking at the seismic activity in Greene County and when. So allegedly, there was an earthquake here in, I think, I want to say 1904, but it was the same day that the munitions building exploded. So there was a powder company down here on 68 and Go Station. It's not because of There She Goes. The guy's name was Goes. That's why it's called Go Station. But it was a powder factory. It was a powder factory. And so was it seismic? Or did the plant explode again? Several explosions over the course of like 10 years. It was like 6 explosions. So that's what that building is. That abandoned building is a powder company. But it coincided with the date and the time. I was like, wait a minute.
But which
You started the big brick building?
Stuff was just blowing up. We didn't have no earthquake.
It was seismic, though.
It was seismic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was seismic. Cool, thank you. Okay, so this one was a resolution, so we can just do all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Judy, if you can read 2026-05.
Yes. Read by title only, I'm assuming.
Yes, please.
This is authorizing the village manager to apply for, accept, and enter into Water Pollution Control Loan Fund agreement on behalf of the Village of Yellow Springs for planning, design, and/or construction of water facilities and designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
This again is following the memo that was in last council's packet. This is asking to allow us to go up to a $100,000 cap versus $59,000 in case we run into issues with the force main that has not been seen for a number of years. Amy Blankenship was on the call with me and an engineering firm. She's also reached out to the EPA and got clarifications on all the unanswered questions that we had.
Cool. Are there any questions anybody has?
I have a question about, so you're up to $100,000. And just reading, like I read this through a couple of times, but that theoretically you could say we only need 80.
Correct.
You know, we're not biting off the whole 100 yet. Yeah, just saying that it could go up to that amount. Okay, thank you.
I have a little question that just occurred to me quite embarrassingly, since I'm the one that, put this in Yellow Springs language, but do we need to say in section 1, after Water Pollution Control Loan Fund of up to $100,000? Because we do not anywhere state a dollar amount.
Yes.
So then, do we need to get a motion to change that, or is that?
That would be a good thing to do.
Okay. Can I just make that? I'm going to make a motion to do what Judy just said.
Second what Judy just said.
Excellent. All those in favor of what Judy just said?
I am in favor of
Aye.
it.
Okay.
Wish it worked that way at my house.
Don't we all? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then back to questions otherwise. Okay. Yeah, I think my only note is just, I think you got it loud and clear the last time,
Yep.
is just that obviously we're all conscientious about the budget, and if
Correct.
every time that there's something, it keeps going up, then we get nervous, and
Right.
so just you're saying you lose sleep over this one, and I think we all heard you, and so, okay. I guess this one is also, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. All right. Now we've reached citizen concerns. This is another place where, if you're interested in citizen concerns, I'd recommend watching the retreat, because we talked about this some, how to approach it. So we're going to try a couple different things here, and I'm going to sort of read a couple little thoughts that we'll try to get across before citizen concerns. So this is the time for citizen input on anything you'd like to share for consideration. If you are commenting on an item on the agenda with a public hearing, we'll take your comments there. In this case, also note that we're going to do the comments related to Short Street at the Short Street portion of the agenda. So hopefully you saw that on the agenda. We'll take the comments on Short Street after the staff presentation. And then please try not to repeat previous comments. If something has already been shared, you can note your agreement. I'll ask you to move on if a topic has already been covered at length, just for the sake of time. We want to give you the best answer, and it can be hard to communicate on the fly, so don't expect a response here, just fair warning. And then at the end of citizen concerns, if there are clear, simple answers or information we can share, we'll do that, as well as identify any follow-ups needed. So hopefully that's in line with what everyone was expecting, and that makes sense to folks. I'll sort of repeat that before citizen concerns going forward. So now is the time for citizen concerns. So if anybody has anything, go for it.
Hello, my name's Mitzi Miller. I'm a resident of Yellow Springs. I want to thank council for taking up and looking at our village's community input. I really appreciate that. I would like to add that it would be really nice if we ask a question. And I know typically you don't answer questions, but if you could address it at the next meeting, that would be great. Instead of it not going anywhere. That would be something I would consider and appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitzi. Anybody else with citizen concerns or questions? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Relita Hildebrand Chambers, village resident, and I mentioned this in the letter that I wrote to the council, but I wanted to go into more detail about the idea of council holding itself accountable in the way that village employees are held accountable for various things. But the two most important to me are cybersecurity, because you all have government accounts and you use the network, and so if you don't follow the rules, we're just as vulnerable as if a village employee doesn't follow the rules. And so I understand from Judy that there is, that the acknowledgement forms that are signed by employees are specific for employees, but I don't think that precludes you as a council from making a document for yourselves that agree with amongst yourselves that you are going to follow these same policies that you expect village employees to follow with respect to cybersecurity and your IT system. And then the other one that's important to me is transparency. And so I know you all have sunshine laws training, and in fact, on the next agenda, there is something that, again, occurred to me after there was an issue last year having to do with a public records request, and with village council members using their personal emails. And so the idea of a public official using their public email for public business is that the council clerk does not have to go to you individually and ask you for personal emails, for you to go through your emails and disclose, because they can just pull the emails from the server on a subject title. Otherwise, if there were litigations, and lawyers can help me with this if it's wrong, but your entire email could be subject to a search and review. So, I mean, it's not just for the betterment of the public, it's for the betterment of the individual council member as well. And so I'm just asking that you consider putting something in writing that says you did the training, you agree with it, and you will hold yourselves to the standard. Because my understanding is you're not doing that, and it's not been done. And I get that you're not employees, but I also feel like, you're public officials, and we should expect you to hold yourselves to the same standards that you hold your employees to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looked like someone else was standing up over here, right? Is there somebody else? Sorry, any other citizen concerns? Okay. I don't know that I have any, so, cool, okay. So the next thing up is special reports. So just to sort of get everybody on the same page of what we're expecting here, and make sure that we're all saying the same thing, we're going to do a presentation. Everybody get comfortable. It'll be about an hour from staff. So if you've seen, there's a slide deck in the agenda, but there's 4 people, right?
Correct.
That'll be presenting. So we'll get the presentation from staff, and then would you like people to hold questions to the end?
Yes.
Okay, so jot down all your questions. Then after the presentation, then the next thing we'll do is we'll open up to public comment from anybody in the public. We'll still do the 3-minute rule, but same as citizen concerns. And then after citizen comments, then we'll have a council discussion and questions following all of that.
Correct.
Okay, so that's where we're going. Everybody get comfy. All right. I think, hand it off, right? Okay, hand it off to Elise.
Thank
Go
you,
for it.
Gavin.
Elise is there.
Perfect. Nice. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Elise Giardulo, Assistant Village Manager. We are here tonight to discuss the Community Space at Short Street pilot project, what we learned from the project, as well as path forward for council consideration and next steps. This pilot project has sparked a lot of community conversation. We've learned a lot along the way. We've heard a wide range of feedback and perspectives on the pilot, all of which underscores the importance of this conversation tonight. The purpose of the pilot was very much learning for us and for the village. It was not to arrive at any predetermined outcome, but to test a community space in real conditions and bring back informed options for council. So we'll start with a brief overview of what was piloted and what we learned through community feedback. We'll also review how that public feedback shaped design thinking going forward. And from there, we'll outline 2 options for consideration along with staff's recommendation to council. So the pilot tested a shift from a street to a community space. Short Street was closed to vehicles and opened to pedestrians. This was an intentionally low-cost pilot because we wanted to see how it worked. And so the vast majority of materials that were purchased for the pilot can be reused elsewhere in the village. Why Short Street? Because it's central and it's visible. It's in the heart of downtown. It's adjacent to businesses and daily foot traffic. Enhancements to Short Street has been discussed for decades, dating back to the 1970s. But ultimately, the pilot was launched in 2025 following feedback from residences and businesses, specifically on the need for bathrooms on the south end of downtown. So the pilot was very much built on conversations and plans that have been happening for the better part of 50 years. And over this time, conversations about Short Street have focused on social interactions and safer streets. And in 2019, the Active Transportation Plan, which was built with community feedback, reaffirmed its potential as a people-focused space. So with that context in mind, let's see how the space was used. Like all of our parks, use was intermittent when there wasn't a dedicated schedule of events, but we saw a lot of engagement in both planned and spontaneous ways. Organized events included Hack Day by Yellow Springs Hacky Sack. We saw a holiday toy swap, the Little Art Marquee, unveiling, which was fantastic, New Year's Eve ball drop, both spring and fall street fairs, Storytune book drop, Trick or Treat or Dance with Lucky Bunny Tattoo, Yellow Springs Film Festival, Twilight Zone screening, Yellow Springs Labor Day Community Party, Battle of the DJs, great turnout for that event, Yellow Springs Community Foundation Summer Music Series, YS Pride Festival. But then there was also just a bunch of spontaneous things that happened. People enjoying food there. Again, the Hacky Sack group, we saw them out at all different days and times. The village manager and I actually met a lovely couple that was visiting from out of town, enjoying lunch there. They had 2 pet iguanas. That was wild. Riley was there. He can vouch for it. So there was just a wide range of activities that happened within the space and during the pilot. In addition to observing how the space was used, we also collected extensive community feedback through a variety of channels. Village council meetings, we heard residents give input, direct engagement that staff had, conversations at the John Bryan Center. The village also did a business walk where we went out and met with businesses, emails and letters to council and staff. We had phone calls with residents. We did an official village survey. We had nearly 1,000 responses on that. And what I will say about the survey that I think was most insightful is that when we looked at the data, younger generations, Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, those aged 54 and below, see the space as more beneficial and are more supportive of making it a permanent community space. We also had the Keep It Vibrant survey, which was a collaboration between us, the Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce, YSDC, and the Community Foundation, where we saw 63 responses there. There was also submissions to the Yellow Springs News, and then of course unofficial feedback through various social media groups. So taken together, this feedback really gives us a rich picture of how the community experienced the pilot and things for us to consider. With all of our observations and feedback in hand, we've learned a lot. Not just about how the space was used, but also about how the process itself could have been better. So first, we want to sincerely thank the community for providing input throughout the pilot. It's been invaluable to us. The village recognizes that the pilot rollout was far from ideal. Communication was limited, expectations were unclear, and some residents and businesses were caught off guard. The pilot launched without structured community input, and limited communication created confusion about the process and goals. This is something we will rectify going forward. And if this space moves forward, there will be ample time for community input on its design, its programming, and its use. Another consistent point of feedback was the impact on parking. The pilot removed 4 valuable spaces. At the same time, there was an opportunity to make the space safer for people walking through downtown and around the schools. When it comes to aesthetics, part of it looked unfinished or uninviting. I think we can all agree here tonight that there's a real opportunity to improve the design of the space and make it more purposeful and welcoming. Work more closely with businesses. We could have engaged them earlier on in the process, and if this progresses, we would work closely with them on design input, use, and programming of the space. Some feedback suggested that other locations could also work for a people-focused space. We heard a lot about Beatty Hughes Park mentioned. Again, I'll say Short Street was chosen because it's the heart of downtown, it's central, and it's not off the beaten path. Finally, there's an opportunity to clarify potential business impacts, including effects on operations, parking, and customer access. At the same time, the pilot highlighted several successes that we can build on. It created a visible central place for people to gather in the heart of downtown. Many businesses expressed support that the space could encourage customer traffic downtown. We observed that the pilot made school pickup and drop-off safer by reducing congestion and conflicts with vehicles. It assisted with congestion at the intersection, particularly for vehicles turning onto Short Street. Design improvements could really enhance the space, and there's a clear opportunity for additional parking to help both residents and businesses. The space enabled a variety of local events, both small and large, that brought more people downtown. And finally, it gave artists a visible platform to showcase their work. So based on all of the feedback that we collected, 4 themes really stood out to staff. And these are the 4 areas that we've focused our efforts to help shape next steps. So let's take a closer look at each of them together. Starting with aesthetics and design. Enhancing design elements would help the space feel intentional and provide a better experience overall for everyone. Council requested that staff present 2 options for the space: a seasonal community space and a year-round community space. So let's start with seasonal. A seasonal community space would operate for 6 months, from May through October, when downtown sees the highest activity and the best weather. Staff estimates that the annual setup and removal costs to be roughly $15,000, which covers temporary installation and takedown each year. We suggest replacing the existing concrete barriers with about 20 retractable bollards. This would improve the look, give the space a cleaner, more inviting feel. It's not vastly different from what you see today. And the reason for that is because it's a seasonal space. It has to be a street first. The street needs to be able to return to vehicle use, so we can't include anything permanent like built-in lighting or fixed seating. This keeps the street flexible and temporary. The other approach is a year-round community space where the street would be permanently converted to pedestrian use. To help us explore what a year-round community space could look like, I'd like to introduce Max Chrome. Max is an architect, a member of our Yellow Springs community, and the founder of Chrome Yellow Springs. He's going to walk us through one vision for the space, a starting point for conversation about what's possible and how this could function as a permanent community space. So Max, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, well, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Max Chrome. For those of you who don't know me, I grew up in town, and you may be familiar with the remodeled First Baptist Church on Xenia Avenue, which is where I work when I'm in Yellow Springs. The reason I'm here is that when I saw what happened at 4th Street, or when I at Short Street, I thought it could really benefit from some design thought, and so I offered to Johnny to put some ideas together, just as one approach to how the problem of closing Short Street might be solved. I've done this with the committee that the village put together, but I'm doing this completely as a private citizen, just as my offer to the village. And so I want to be clear that I think this is just one approach, and that in order to move the project forward, there should be a lot of community input to come up with the final design. So having said that, I'm going to launch into it. Okay, so just to get everybody oriented on Short Street, you could kind of define Short Street by the four corners of the hardware store, the bank, the foundation building, and the red house on Walnut Street. And these four corners really define the perimeter and connect what would be created, what the plaza that would be created. The proposal that I have breaks Short Street up into several different sections. So we're going from the from the satellite view into the computer model now. So all the images you see here are computer generated, but based pretty accurately on what's going on 4th Street. So up at Short Street, rather, sorry. Closest to Xenia Avenue, you will see there's a little area. Can you guys see my cursor moving around by any chance? Yes. Okay, so this area up front is the people watching area. I think this is a pretty important zone to create like a small hangout zone where people can talk to their neighbors coming up and down Xenia. One big change you'll notice is that there's a single crosswalk instead of two crosswalks. If you close Short Street, you really don't need both of them. So it just so happens that centering the crosswalk on Short Street, it centers up very nicely on the other side on the little art theater. So my proposal is to put a couple of planters and close off the entry here. And you gain back 2 parking spaces that you've lost here by doing that. And I do think it's important to gain back the other parking spaces. You can see here on Walnut Street, there's a couple more that are added here. So I think that closing Short Street can, losing the parking spaces, which I think is one of the biggest concerns that I heard, I think that can be mitigated just by adding those 4 spaces back, but also the village has shared several other plans for adding parking nearby. So I think the parking concern can be addressed in many ways. So moving on to my next slide here, what this slide is really about is defining a language for the work. It doesn't, this is just one language that might be adopted, but it's very important that the benches, the planters, the bike racks, trash containers, etc., all have a similar language or have a cohesive language that works together. So this is just one thought that I'm employing. I'm also showing different varieties of stamped concrete. My proposal would be to completely remove the asphalt that goes sidewalk to sidewalk, to fix up the sidewalks, and to pour back a new concrete flat work across the entire thing and stamp it with stamped concrete. I think that would be an economical way to get something very pretty. So here is a perspective view, and you see this is sort of an aerial view from above the marquee. So here are the various zones that are broken up, and here you can see our little guy coming across the single crosswalk. The people watching zone here, this middle zone, which I call the dance floor, which is where things like the ball drop might happen or other community events. I think there's a nice opportunity for a water feature in the middle here. This is just one idea of a water feature. There's a lot of different ways to do water features. This is just one thought. The next zone is sort of more seating, so beyond the people watching zone, a place that you could accommodate more people. And then at the very end, there's a greenhouse, just an open shelter that would winterproof the Short Street a little bit and provide some shade from the sun. Also, these various zones are kind of defined by these street trees that go back. So you can see the idea is to leave the sidewalks where they are, continue the sidewalk through Xenia Avenue, and so these would need to be fixed up and re-poured, but they would still have the visual appearance of sidewalks and kind of still be treated as sidewalks. But the middle here is infilled with the stamped concrete, and so it would be an even surface all the way across. Here is a person-eye view, kind of looking into the people-watching area. And this is where, where people sit in front of Tom's or sit in front of Current. The same kind of function. I think we all have spent time doing that, or at least chatting to people who are doing that. I think there's an opportunity to do some kind of community board, whether it's a map or notices or something, I don't know. But I think there's a good opportunity to do a community board here. And again, you can see I've chosen this language of a very particular kind of concrete benches, tables, and chairs. These can be purchased as products, but I think, given the nature of our community, I think it's likely that we could find local craftspeople who may be able to build them. And so then the other features also have a sort of similar kind of design language. I'm showing the kind of this similar type of bike rack, a light bollard, which all the lighting would be accomplished with these little bollards, and this is sort of a similar matching posts for the community board. Another view, and you can see the kids going crazy there in the background. So here's a, I think this would be the most used space. This is, this sort of people watching area. And it's just set up with a couple of different types of tables. Maybe you have some built-in chessboards. Maybe you have some four tops and a bench there, just to offer different variety of seating. Same thing with the planners. Again, I'm trying to employ a language that connects all the various parts that make up Short Street. The idea of this, you guys have seen these types of fountains where it just shoots right out of the ground, and it's great in the summer. It can be turned off in the winter, and it can kind of disappear. Whether you want to do big concrete balls to define the space or not, that's a question, but I kind of like it. So this would be the greenhouse, and if anyone's seen the community space in Centerville, I think it's called Benham's Grove. It's this beautiful modern pavilion that the community built for various purposes, and this is just a tiny little version of something kind of similar. But that was my inspiration to create a space like this. So I wanted to show you the various seasons. That was the summer, and so this is what it might look like in the fall. I was thinking this would be around the time of the film festival. And I really enjoyed when they projected the movie onto the hardware store. I thought that was really cool. And I think this would be a really wonderful space for that. So wintertime, it could be, this was an idea that Denise Swinger brought to me, and I thought it was a lot of fun. They have portable skating rinks that you can set up and break down. And I thought that might be something fun. This would be a small rink that would just be seasonal, temporary. Maybe we would come for a festival or for a month or two. And here we are in the spring. And so this is maybe during the street fair. And you can see why I call this the dance floor. You know, this is a larger gathering space, you know, maybe enough room to put a stage perhaps, or who knows what. But you can see how nicely the center crosswalk aligns with the Little Art Theater. And that's my last slide that shows that shows the proposal of my proposal for a permanent closure of Short Street. I also put together another proposal of something that would be temporary, that might serve while funds were being raised, et cetera, and while the public hearings and the public feedback were happening on exactly what the design might be. So before I move on to that, I did want to make one other point about for the merchants. I want to let the merchants know that I think that this closure would be extremely good for them. One thing that I've learned in doing almost 40 years of retail architecture is that retailers really want people to come to their town or to their mall or to wherever they are and stay. That's your best way to attract new customers, to keep customers. You want them to come and stay for as long as possible. And I think a welcoming park-like environment would do that. I think people would come to town for it, and I think people would stay in town for it. So at least, shall I continue on with the temporary one?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. So this idea was inspired by a festival that takes place in the town where my California firm is, in San Rafael, California. Every year we close a street about the same size as Short Street and paint out rectangles on the ground, and people come and they create art, and people come from all over to come check this art out. But I thought, you know, why not do it with permanent or at least semi-permanent paint, enough to last a year or two or however long it's going to take to get a project designed, funded, etc. So here's the floor plan. And so this is Short Street just exactly the way it is now with the crosswalks. But up here in the front, it's closed off by some planters, closed off on Walnut Street with some planters. And the idea would be to paint the whole street with a slurry like you do sometimes when you rejuvenate a street. You just kind of paint it with this black material that protects the asphalt, and that would create a base. And then you paint a cross pattern. Each one of these boxes is about 11 feet by 11 feet. And so the idea was just to create a pattern. Different artists could come in and paint a square, or maybe businesses could sponsor a square, or however that might happen, I don't know. The idea was to create some shade instead of the tent that we have now, to provide a couple of shade sails that would connect to existing infrastructure. So here's a street lamp, power pole, power pole, power pole. So these sails could connect, and so there wouldn't be, there wouldn't be a need for the posts that we have out there now. And I thought the festival lights could kind of go in this abstract pattern that just follow the sails, like you would put the festival lights just along each of these triangles. So these are 6 sides of festival lights, and so I would rearrange it like that. here's a perspective view of what that might look like. And the thought was to, since this would be a temporary, short-term thing, to use the existing picnic tables that the village already owns. I think the biggest expense here would be getting these planters, and they really have to be really, really heavy duty, probably with the first foot filled with concrete, so they act not only as planters, but also as barriers for cars, so they couldn't, even if they crashed into it, couldn't get through it. Here's another from our from the people watching area. And then lastly, I would enclose the porta potties with a sort of trellis structure. And the idea here would just be very simple wood structure, something that could be built out of everyday building materials, kind of trellis you might have in your backyard. And just something that you could enter in through the side, but that would, be completely aired out and just good sort of cover up the unsightly porta potties. And so that's it. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Max is going to stick around for questions later on, but thank you. Thank you, Max, for sharing that vision.
You're welcome.
Aaron.
Okay. So building on that, I want to focus on what a permanent community space could mean for downtown businesses. Max sort of touched on that, but I want to dive a little bit further. So to get a better sense of these opportunities, village leadership met directly with surrounding property owners and tenants on Short Street. And overall, the feedback was largely supportive of creating a vibrant, community-focused downtown space. We also worked very closely with the Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce throughout the pilot to gather stakeholder input and better understand business perspectives. The Chamber outreach and survey responses complemented our engagement and helped shape the planning process. From our conversations with businesses and surveys, a few clear themes emerged. The space is unattractive and could use improvement. The process and communication were inadequate, and the village acknowledges these shortcomings and understands the confusion that they created. At the same time, most businesses do support some form of street closure, whether that be seasonal or year-round, and the overall concept of a community space downtown is broadly supported. That said, there's a need for more clarity around the space's identity, programming, and potential uses so that businesses can really understand how it will function moving forward. Businesses also recognize the central location as an economic opportunity, but access and parking continue to be top priorities. To help ground this conversation, we also looked at research on pedestrian-focused downtown spaces and how they tend to function elsewhere. Consistently, the research shows that prioritizing people over cars can support both community life and local businesses. Pedestrian-focused streets tend to attract more foot traffic, which brings more visitors downtown and encourages people to spend more time in the area. When people linger, they're more likely to shop, dine, and engage with nearby businesses. So these environments tend to improve the overall feel of a district, which can support reinvestment and long-term property value. In fact, studies show that walkable streets can increase shop entries and local spending by up to as much as 40%. This research doesn't dictate what Yellow Springs should do, but it provides some helpful context as we consider what's possible. There are countless examples of communities that have converted streets into dedicated community spaces, and we've highlighted just two here for context. In Rosendale Village, outside of Boston, a street was converted into Birch Street Plaza. A key learning here is that thoughtful design with active programming helps support both community gatherings and nearby businesses. In Burlington, Vermont, Church Street Marketplace was created as a permanent pedestrian space, and a commission was actually established to help program that space. I think, with COVID-19, there was quite an uptick in the creation of streets to spaces, right? Businesses pushed their seating out onto streets to help with social distancing, and so the success of that was later, explored in different areas with the year-round space. These communities differ from Yellow Springs in size and setting, but they offer useful perspectives on how design, programming, and long-term management can shape the success of a downtown public space. I think one of the key takeaways from the pilot is that design alone doesn't make a community space work, programming does. Village support and strong community partnerships are ultimately what bring this space to life. Village Parks and Rec has and would continue to play a role in managing event permitting. And at the same time, community partners, including the Chamber, local nonprofits, the Community Foundation, and individual community members help activate the space through events, programming, and everyday use. This kind of collaboration allows the village to support the space without needing to program everything itself, and it helps ensure that the space reflects our community. Programming and partnerships are what bring a space to life, but a community space doesn't exist in isolation. How people get to the space, where they park, and how they access businesses is equally important. That's why our next focus is on parking and community access. Parking has long been a challenge in downtown Yellow Springs. It's been discussed since I was a kid growing up here, and the pilot really brought that back into focus. This renewed a conversation that's been ongoing for years. During the pilot, we temporarily removed 4 on-street spaces, which highlighted how limited parking, and especially accessible parking, affects residents and businesses. So looking ahead, the next slides that you're about to see show conceptual solutions for parking. The exact locations and number of spaces, including accessible spots, will be refined through design and engineering work. But first, I want to quickly review how the pilot changed parking on and around Short Street. Overall, there was a net loss of 4 spaces, going from 13 to 9. On the positive side, accessible parking increased by 1 space from 1 to 2, and we added bicycle parking at the front of the street as well. And now I'm going to hand things over to the village manager, who's going to walk us through some suggested parking improvements, starting with South Walnut Street.
Okay, so South Walnut Street, we have looked at a redesign of South Walnut Street. This is without widening or anything. This is using the current measurements and angle parking and redoing some crosswalks. And then we have had conversations with the church about putting in 4 handicap spots on their property as well. It would be a partnership. They would let us do it. They could use it on Sunday because that also helps them for their church access for the handicap as well, the people with mobility issues. So I've had conversations with Dr. Holden and Megan. This would not even be thought about until the school's construction and all that's done, but this is simply just a redesign by paint on the current street location and retraining traffic. It's still going to be making two-way traffic. It's just going to be angled parking on one side, parallel on the other side. I actually drive a Suburban, so I have actually been out there. We've already tested it. I have probably one of the largest vehicles, and it will actually work with the sidewalk where it's at. And then you want to go back a couple more slides, or 2 slides, yes. These were the parking plans that was put in or taken out of the comprehensive land use plan, but the Catholic Church has also asked us if we could do something with they're having an issue with not having accessibility down there because of it being gravel. This again is not cutting into any of the Mills Lawn property. This is just being able to asphalt and restripe the area that is basically blacktop grounds right now. So we would be able to get 71 spots on Phillips and Elm with 8 accessible spots. Then Beatty Hughes, that way we could have some more parking closer to the downtown, but also by Beatty Hughes. If the chiropractor lot's full, they could have something there. If people want to just walk downtown and there's no open spots in the subway lot and Keys Alley, they could park right there. That is additional 8 to 10 spots with 2 handicap or 2 ADA spots right there. Then Corey Street, I'm not saying that there has to be 13. We could start off with 1, 2, 3. But if you come to the Bryant Center in the spring, you will find a lot of people that trailer or bring their bikes in by vehicles and then they jump on the bike path. This would allow them to just pull up by the bike path, unload, go ride their bike, come back, load their bikes up, and free up the lots. Or if they just wanted to go for a walk, they could literally park right there beside the Corey Street. If they're visiting the women's garden, there'd be some parking spots versus pulling down in the grass. This would be just like 3 spots at a time, and we would make sure that we put it where the trees are not, so we don't have that problem with damaging the trees.
Yep, and that just helps really free up parking for if you're coming into Yellow Springs just to get on the bike path, then you're not taking, spots from the downtown.
Correct.
There is no one better to speak on safety and traffic flow than our very own Chief of Police, Paige Burge. I'll hand it to you. Well, hello. All right, so everybody else got the sexy part, and I just get the practical part, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? We can try and make safety look sexy. So we've discussed it before, and we'll say it again. I think the theme of safety and vehicle and pedestrian safety as it pertains to this project is this project has reduced traffic conflicts. It has reduced high-risk driving behaviors, and we have seen a noticeable difference in the area. The school would agree. You'll see on a later slide that we had traffic engineers who also agreed. So prior to the pilot, we were seeing frequent vehicular cut-through in the area. So Short Street was used as a cut-through from 68 and off of Walnut Street. Turning onto South Walnut Street created conflict points with pedestrians and cyclists, and these were commonly raised concerns, including school drop-off periods, improper passing, and speeding. All of these things were things we were seeing. So since then, we've observed 100% reduction, which is easy to say because there's no cars coming onto or off of Short Street. So the very nature of closing the street has reduced those has completely eliminated those conflict points, which has given us the one thing that we appreciate more than anything else when it comes to traffic, when it comes to cars and pedestrians, which is predictability. That was the theme the last time we had this conversation. It's the theme this time. So fewer vehicles turning in the area means school staff can focus their attention on student safety rather than managing traffic congestion. Additionally, let's see, look, I'm using my PowerPoint instead of yours. So dismissal and arrival have been safer and more manageable. We've seen reduced vehicles turning there, allowing school staff to focus on student safety. And it's just improved the predictability. So both school, my staff, and village staff agree. Lastly, obviously, Choice 1 Engineering is not here, but their findings found that essentially a traffic study wasn't even necessary because of the low volume of traffic, that the Short Street already functions as a low-volume roadway, and closing it to vehicles is not expected to negatively impact surrounding streets. And I've said it several times already, I'll say it again, reducing the conflict points improve safety. We aren't seeing those risky driving behaviors. Vehicles are not trying to cut into oncoming traffic to dip onto Short Street and vice versa. So the more predictability, the easier it is for our student crossing guards, for our law enforcement officers, and for our school staff. So summary is documented, the primary takeaway is that it's been documented that there's an increase in pedestrian safety
and it's reduced congestion in the area and just helped overall improve the flow of traffic, arrival and dismissal. All right. It's about as sexy as I can make it, folks.
Thank you, Chief Burge. Okay, that brings us to staff's recommendation to council for the space going forward. So staff recommends pursuing a year-round pedestrian-centered community space on Short Street shaped by community input. First, as Chief Burge just discussed, it enhances safety from both the police side and engineering staff, as well as support from the school, indicate that improved pedestrian and vehicle safety did occur with the pilot. Second, a consistent people-focused space encourages foot traffic and longer visits, which will support downtown businesses. It creates a cultural and social hub. And then finally, it maximizes design and value. So year-round use enables more features, thoughtful design, and long-term cost efficiency than a seasonal space would. So with that recommendation in mind, let's quickly discuss how we would advance a year-round space. So as Max showed us, right, there are interim enhancements that we can implement right away to improve the space as we build. Wind sails for shade, covering the bathrooms, a street mural to activate the space, landscaping and planters. We really know that aesthetics and design were a major point of feedback from the community on the pilot project. And so while updates, would take time, these improvements can help make it more inviting in the meantime. So now I'll pass it back to the village manager to take us through the timeline, costs, and funding.
All right. So this is all rough. This is, it's all going to be dependent on funding or dependent on the closing. But if we was to have council move forward with the permanent closure, we could use 26 for input from the community to get a final design. We would also be able to start looking for different funding sources, be able to fundraise, find grants, go and get other people to help with the funding to be able to reduce the cost to the village, but be able to use the space if we was to do what Max's brain was able to put in just from a couple of conversations with the wind cells, with some artwork, to turn the space into a better looking space. In the meantime, while we're looking for all the community and the business inputs and looking for funding and all the things to make it happen. As far as the infrastructure goes, there is only one water main underneath of Short Street. It has a shutoff valve on Walnut Street. It has a shutoff valve on Xenia Avenue. We have determined that main, even though it's looped, if for some reason something was to happen to that main, it would be a matter of just turning off the valves. Nobody's fed off of that, and it would not, with Choice One ran it through the water models that we have. It would not change the pressure. It would not do anything. We'd just be able to isolate that. What we wouldn't want to do is do a bunch of work to the space if that's what we're going to do, and then all of a sudden 6 months, 7 months, a year down the road, we're jackhammering the middle of the space open again. So when Max talked about doing a flat surface, I'm envisioning the same thing as him. We would completely redo the sidewalks, take them out, and have not a stamped sidewalk, but a normal looking sidewalk with stamped concrete. But that would also allow us to put stormwater in there to be able to bring the stormwater out through 68 to hook into the storm system. So there's a lot of things that can be done, and we would be doing it in phases, but we'd also be able to use the space as you've seen with Max's drawings. And if we was to get the funding, we was to get everything in place, we think we could be totally done by 29. Now, everybody's like, oh my God, 29 is a long way away. Well, I can remember saying that in 2019 when we did the multimodal path grant, and 24 was right around the corner, and they got done in 23, and now it's like, hey, it's been there forever. So it is a 3 or 4 year process, but we want to make sure in 26 that we get all the answers, we get all the input, we get all the feedback, and we have 100% everybody on board for the design of this space. So, based on just infrastructure, these are rough numbers. Budget, I say rough. I actually talked to a contractor about the flat surface and the storm work. That was the budget number he gave me. But I also see that we can use some of our staff to help offset these costs. So 780 is a good number, but it also depends on what the final design of that space is. I mean, if you're talking about a greenhouse, maybe that greenhouse is 30,000, but it could also be 300,000. Somebody wants to donate a $300,000 greenhouse, we're not going to turn it down. So these numbers would depend on what the final renderings would be and the final numbers for the infrastructure, seating and tables. The shelter house we have in there is 90,000. To go back to the ice rink that Max showed in his drawing, we have had conversations. There is a synthetic material that, believe me, a lot of people use that we didn't know about it. Disney World actually uses synthetic ice. They don't have raw ice. And you can literally ice skate in the summertime with regular skates, and you can snap this whole thing together. And it's, if we wanted to do it and it's in the final design, we could set it up and it'd be right about $100,000, and you could have an ice skating rink year round, or you could have it for the season. But those are, dreaming is free, if you remember, and that's actually a quote from Max Chrome. Dreaming is free. So who knows what can happen in the space? The space that we envision is to bring the community back downtown, to be downtown, to shop downtown, to hang around downtown, and really start being a great community and communicating instead of the Facebook or the letters or the, just let's all get in a space and communicate. COVID did us all an injustice. I'll be the first one to tell you. Remote is nice if you're sick, because you can remote in from home. But man, being in the office or being at a meeting, that's where the communication is. So. I want to comment on the bathrooms. The bathrooms, Mitzi actually sent me a picture of one where she went fishing on the bathroom and the cover of the Porta-Johns. And I said something to Max, and I mean, that makes a world of difference. But, our goal would be to put permanent bathrooms in there, but we got to, we've already applied for one grant. We got turned down because it wasn't a permanent space. So we kept the temporaries in there, but the goal would be to get permanent bathrooms in that location. Approving funding sources, grant programs, private public partnership, community contribution, sponsorship, village budget. If we deem that this is a project that fits our goals, and we want to try to shift some of the funds from sidewalks to there, or we just got to be able to start going for them, and that requires a decision.
We've had a number of, and the images there really speak to the successful public-private partnerships that we've seen in the village, right? The dog park, the bike path, the train station, Wheeling Gaunt statue. There are others, the skate park that is in our backyard. So we've seen that come to life, and I think it could work again. So with that, the staff presentation is done. Happy to take any initial questions that council may have, or we can shift to citizen concerns.
Yeah, I think we had talked about doing citizen concerns
first.
next, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
we'll shift to citizen concerns. So yeah, if folks can try to stay at 3 minutes, and yeah, we'll take any questions or discussion. Right?
Hi, Relita Hildebrand, village resident. First of all, I just want to say, Max, your designs are incredible and inspiring, and definitely create wonderful visions of the possibilities. I wanted to say that I really loved the slides on the parking places. I don't think that they're necessarily need to be tied to Short Street, though. I mean, I think that that would be an interesting discussion in and of itself, the cost of doing that and the return on investment for each one of those would be interesting to see outside of this discussion. And I don't know why we would wait on it, frankly, because it is an issue that everyone is dealing with. And so I think that would be interesting to just have on its own. Obviously, the cost is my biggest concern of this project. I also think that for those who are going to talk about using TOMS as a cut-through, that we're the problem. And so, you know, I think everybody's been so conditioned to use Short Street to cut through, to get back and not go all the way up or all the way down on 68, that we need to just discipline ourselves. And if we're going to keep this closed, then that just needs to be a commitment to our community, not to use TOMS as a cut-through. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my alarm's going to go off in a few minutes. I'm Luan Hyde. I live on North Park Place, so that's in the north end of town. And so for me, the Short Street closure has been really inconvenient. If I'm driving, and I do drive to the south end of town quite often because I have a lot of people that I go to visit, and I use the bike path for exercise, and I'm going in that direction and then coming back that way. And often I'm going down Walnut Street when Mills Lawn is either coming in or going out, and I would get stuck in there, you know, with people dropping off or picking up their kids. And so I would take Short Street to get out of the way. So for me, that was a convenient way not to create a there was a bottleneck, you know, there is a bottleneck when the kids are being let off or picked up. And I would use Short Street to get out of the way and continue on without waiting in line and possibly causing more of a traffic jam. I drive by down that street, Walnut Street, and past Short Street. We're on Xenia Avenue at least twice, if not 4 or 5 times a day. And I hardly ever saw anybody using that space. It was too hot in the summer. It's too cold in the winter. I'm wondering about when there's a permanent closure, how the snow will be removed from that space, because you're closing off both ends of the street permanently. How do you make it accessible when we have 18 inches of snow, which we just had last week? So I don't know if there's any data on the usage over the last period of time since it was closed, but to me it just seemed pretty useless. And the several events that happen that use that space can be, you know, temporary closures for the events, but I don't think it was being used all that often during the daytime and certainly at night, and it was very hot. Is my 3 minutes up? I see the clock is not ticking.
You got 30 seconds, he says.
All righty. I think I'm pretty much done, though. I'd like to see some data on how it was being used. Is there any?
I can't answer that.
Well,
I mean,
how about we try the thing we talked about in the citizen concerns, where we'll make a note of questions and then we'll try to come and do a pass instead of getting back and forth.
Fabulous.
Sound okay?
Okay, thanks a lot.
Laura Curlis, Village resident. I just want to follow up on her because I have the same experience, except I live on the south side, and it's a frequent, useful cut-through. I'm also a business owner, and I've expressed this in surveys, but I've calculated, because I'm a frequent user of U.S. Bank, I'm there 3 or 4 times a day, and then in the post office. Anyway, I'm using a lot more gas, a lot more time, because I can't cut through to get back. And for my business, time is money. So I figure it's costing me about $2,000 a year. Now, that's not a big deal to anybody else but me, but I've calculated it on a chart, and that's what it costs my business not to have that available. I also am a frequent user of US Bank, and I worry a little bit about their business. It has caused me already to move one of my accounts to WesBanco. And if this continues, I'll probably move all my business to WesBanco now. Good for WesBanco, but maybe not so good for US Bank. Lastly, I just wanted to say, as a former village administrator, what is the #1 most preventable type of accident in a vehicle? Johnny, do you know?
Pedestrian.
Backing accidents. Backing up a vehicle. And not everybody, including me, I have a vehicle that doesn't have backing cameras, and have been a victim of an angled-in parking backing accident where I tried my best to honk my horn and like, stop backing into me, and they backed into me. And I really think you should look at some of the studies about angled-in parking and backing accidents. Some communities try to force people to back their vehicles into that angled parking for that reason. A lot of people don't like that either. So I'm just saying, look a lot harder at that. And finally, if you drive around Elm, Phillips today, any day of the week, when it's busy, when it's a Friday afternoon in Yellow Springs and it's 70 degrees, how many people are actually parking on Phillips? How many people are actually parking on Elm? Not that many, if there's not an event. So adding angled parking even on those streets, if they're not using it now, why? I do agree with the Catholic Church they could benefit from taking that gravel and maybe curb it and pave it. But thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you.
Hi, Valerie Kosheleff. I just want to say I think that presentation was absolutely brilliant, and this is imperative that Yellow Springs move forward with a permanent park right there. I've been to dozens of pedestrian streets all over the world, and they are the most joyful place. And to speak to Johnny Burns' comment about connecting, it's extraordinarily important that we all get back to connecting and hanging out with each other and actually being a community and not just passively saying hi, but actually speaking to each other. COVID definitely destroyed all of that, and this is a perfect opportunity to change it. I would also like to say we have an opportunity to live up to our environmental values of this village and use fully sustainable materials. We could even create a permeable floor, a permeable concrete, right? There are a lot of materials that are available. I have a background in sustainability. It goes on and on. And in the meantime, if you do keep it closed, I definitely would like to see it look a lot prettier right now. It's a place that is so unappealing for me. I never go there unless I have a crowd of people who are gathering for a reason. Unfortunately, those brick barriers don't appeal to women. They make it look like it's a construction zone where we're going to get harassed. And on top of it, the trash cans should look prettier still. We want them to not look like trash cans. And lastly, I would like to propose something that you will probably chuckle at, but I am actually quite serious. I've been thinking about this for months. The village's name is Yellow Springs. And that road, Short Street, created such a point of contention between everybody in this town. I was sick of hearing about it. I would like us to not call it Short Street going forward. Instead, I propose we do what Columbine did, which was because the building was such an attraction to tourists, they had 2,000 people every day coming and gawking. The only solution was to tear it down. So they did. So I say we get rid of Short Street's name, doesn't have to be immediate, but just for the long term, and we name it something beautiful, like the Yellow Springs Brick Road, a place of hope and dreams and creativity. Did I just quote Max Chrome as well? Yep. Dreams are free, right? Anything is possible. So let's have a lot of fun with this, and let's make it golden. Let's make it yellow, so it's really beautiful for all of us to see after we do Max's art project as well on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Eric Oberg, village resident. I'll just start by saying I fully support a permanent closure. I don't think we will ever get the full potential out of that space as a temporary. You can't make a street pretty. You can't make a street a place that people want to hang out. So if it's temporary, it will never live up to its full potential. I've been here almost 11 years. My kids are no longer at Mills Lawn. The chaos of pickup and drop off at Mills Lawn has long preceded when we moved here, and it's still here. If we reopen Short Street, and that, as long as I've been here, all we've said is it is a matter of when, not if, there's a serious accident with a student, and hopefully it's just an accident and not something worse. We reopen Short Street and that happens. Based on the feedback that it is much safer with Short Street closed, I wouldn't want to be accountable for that decision. We have a chance to make it safer for our kids. I'm not sure if there's anything more important for a village to do. So I'll say that I would also, actually, I agree with Laura. There's, on even the busiest of days, if I happen to be driving instead of riding a bike into town, I've never not been able to park somewhere along Phillips and Elm, which also makes me wonder, do we really have such a parking problem if there's always a place to park? So I'll just end with that.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
Hi, I'm Gary Zaremski, a village resident. I also wanted to just mention that I really appreciate, I'm impressed with the job that the village staff did. Obviously, they spent several months on this, and it was a very professional-looking presentation. They really dug into a lot of the questions that have been raised. I also like to thank Max Chrome, who just, thankfully for us, just loves this village and is willing to put in his efforts for it. The other key thing I wanted to mention, Mr. Johnny Burns here would be disappointed if I didn't comment on bicycle parking, and I just wanted to say that hopefully, from what I was seeing on the slides, well, actually also the verbiage talking about being pedestrian-friendly, best pedestrian-friendly. I didn't see bicycle-friendly anywhere in that. I think in the area that we're talking about, the area that was formerly known as Short Street, would be many locations where you could put bike racks, good bike parking. In reality, you don't want people driving to right outside of that area, parking their car, and then walking to the plaza. Correct. You want them, if they can't walk to them, you want them to ride their bike to it. That would also alleviate the car parking problem. Correct. And I can tell that Johnny's taking notes. He's going to be right on this.
It's already in drawings.
Yeah. The only other thought, just as being mentioned, the parking on Phillips, Elm Street, and all that. It's not always obvious to people that you can park somewhere where it's just a batch of gravel. Where you have blacktop with lines, then it's obvious that's where you park. So I have a feeling if you moved ahead on some variation of what was being discussed, all of a sudden you'd have more people parking there. It's just my assumption. Anyway, that's what I had with a minute to spare. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jean McKee, recently returned to Yellow Springs. Oh, can't hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm Jean McKee, and I recently returned to Yellow Springs to live. I was born and raised here. Family's been here since 1862. I say that only so you'll know. But anyway, my comments, I have 4 comments. One is the presentation made by staff was impressive. However, my background is business, and part of what I saw was the 2 examples of Massachusetts and Vermont were for communities 10 times the size of Yellow Springs, and in each example, there were existing businesses facing those streets. There are no businesses facing Short Street to bring people in, to attract pedestrians, so we don't have traffic on Short Street now, or people that are visiting other businesses, especially with the hardware store gone. The other thing is the safety information that Paige shared, which I appreciate, but it is totally contrary to what I've seen personally, having been down there, and what I've heard from other people. So I'm curious to know, what are the specifics that you've seen where there's been a reduction of the potential for hazards? Because what I've heard, it hasn't changed that much, and what I've seen, I haven't seen that. And I'd love to know if there are specifics on safety where your officers or others have shared and seen directly where there were near misses or other comments. And the other suggestion is, I think the school system needs to build a robust school crossing guard program, like most communities have. So that. And then the other thing is, I've heard two other things. Short Street is not a cut-through, it's a street. People may use it to go from one street to another, but that's no different than using Corey Street to go from Xenia Avenue to Dayton Street. So minimizing the importance of that street for this community, I think, is short-sighted on Short Street. And then as a senior, okay, we don't have robust parking. I'm not a bicycler. I know there are a lot of people, and I did when I was younger, but I cannot bicycle now. I have bad knees, and that's not a choice. And I looked at where the parking, you're talking about putting handicap parking, and it's not accessible for people that would need it. It's further away, which means if I'm on a walker or I'm on a wheelchair or I need assistance, you're not making it easier for me. You need to get input from the people that need accessible parking and accessible. And as far as Max's design is beautiful, but I saw no handicapped accessibility in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Jean McKee, for that honest opinion there. First of all, I'd just like to thank our community and our village government. I think this has opened a lot of people's eyes about the importance of community involvement. And I think we're seeing it in different areas with the hardware store, with the grocery store, that it's pulling every entity together to try to figure this out. I agree that with Lita that her concern about parking needing to be addressed now. I also strongly have a background working with disabled individuals, and I'm very concerned about placement of handicap parking where it's located and getting that community involved in placement of appropriate parking for them in our community. I will also say that I took the time to assess the school safety concerns, and I wrote a letter with my observation, and I'm hoping to work with the village and the school district on appropriate signage currently around our streets and our schools. I saw a lot of concerns for safety and potential accidents to occur in that observation. And if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend people going to the village packet and taking a look at it. I strongly feel if it will be the position of council not to keep it closed, that there are things that can be done now temporarily until the school is closed. I mean, the school is fully completed with their construction. That can be done. And the consideration of on Short Street, a right turn only option. This, I am not against the closure, but I'm also very concerned about current safety issues around our schools that can temporarily be addressed now before the school's completed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Jill Polly, resident. I have a question that's purely in just my own curiosity regarding like how this decision is made to close the street, if that's a decision that like we as a village or a council staff is allowed to make if we all vote on it and say yes, or if another level of authority is supposed to be brought in, like the Department of Transportation. I'm just curious. So maybe a note for later for question. One other thought is just regarding how it changes traffic patterns. I know we've pointed out how it helps with school safety, but I'm also wondering about the hairpin turn that you have to do, right, to come around the corner. Help me out, what's the street?
Xenia to Walnut or?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, Xenia at the light, and then you have to do like the hairpin turn. I'm just wondering if that should be like reimagined, if there's an increase of traffic that comes as a result of Short Street permanent closure. That's all. Thank you.
Can you repeat that first question? Actually, I missed the first part of your statement.
The first question?
Yeah.
Oh, just, so like the decision to close a street, is that something that like at a village level, there's the authority to do versus does like Department of Transportation need to weigh in on that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Kaufman. I organize the Yellow Springs Hacky Sack group. We use the Short Street space at least twice a week right now, every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 o'clock till 9 or 10 o'clock. Just want to let everybody know that it is being used. Normally in the evenings, the lighting is better on Short Street than it is down at the train station, and so evenings makes it really great. The public nature of the space really is what pushes us there. We like foot traffic. We like to invite people to play with us, to enjoy the space. We used the space all summer long. I had my wedding reception on Short Street. It was open to everybody that walked by, food and cake for the village. We made some new village friends that day. And this is the kind of thing that I think Short Street should be. It's like what Yellow Springs, as I understand it, is all about. It's why we located our activity here, is because Yellow Springs is a place that is open and accepting and community driven, and it really matches with the mission that we have. And so I just want to encourage the permanent closure of Short Street and encourage the village to go after some of these parking projects that were shown in the presentation. Everyone seems mostly upset about parking. The 35 seconds it takes to go around Short Street seems really negligible next to people having parking spots, handicapped parking, accessible parking. Make more parking and give all the good spots to the handicapped spots. Like the rest of us can walk. It'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like that might be the bar on power user of Short Street there. Wedding and twice a week. The bar has been set. Okay.
It has. My name's Matthew Kirk. I'm a village resident. I reside on Southview Drive. We really packed a lot into this meeting. I thought we were just going to talk about a park, but we got a whole parking plan. We have the school safety thing, and I guess since that keeps coming up, and that's an undeniable thing, right? And we've decided that somehow Short Street needs to solve that problem. We should probably look at that problem irrespective of Short Street, because the reality is safe school drop-off at everywhere else doesn't happen in the middle of the road. Certainly doesn't happen in two directions on both sides of the street. right? And if we can afford on Walnut to make all these additional parking spaces, maybe we could afford an actual drop-off lane. We could have multiple cars pull off, drop the kids off safely, and then continue on. Don't do drop-off on both sides of the road. So, I mean, if we really care about that, I think we need to have an earnest conversation with the schools about solving that problem in a real way, as opposed to acting like the closure of Short Street all of a sudden will make that a non-chaotic, safe drop-off thing. Again, this is completely irrespective of the park, but because we seem to be tying that and, using the kids as a justification, I think it's important that we actually address that in a meaningful way, not just say, oh, we should close Short Street. That's an addressed issue now. Now the matter comes to, the park itself, which I think the reality on that is, if we're going to do it, we need to do it in a meaningful way so that people actually use it. And I do love that we have, the Hacky Sack. That's a community that's found a home there, but the rest of the community has not found a home there yet. Outside of some special programmed events that happened in a very short window of when the project was open. So other people have brought up and alluded to the fact that for a big part of the prime peak period of this park is going to exist, it is hot. It's going to be hot. You're going to have thunderstorms. You're going to have any number of things. So that plan that Max drew up, it was kind of just a reimagining of what we have there. But the one thing the current thing is missing, and in the finished seasonal or year-round version is missing, is shade. Had those little tiny street trees and stuff, but that's not going to cool off a space where people are going to want to stay out there for extended periods of time. Also, I think something to think about, if you just took Max's plan, since you have that visualization, that pavilion in the back, make that the park. Instead of trying to make the park, it's got a water feature, and it's got a pavilion, and it's got this, and it's got that, and whatever. Have it just be like one thing. Like, maybe it doesn't have to be everything. Maybe it's just a community gathering space that can handle big events. And that can be an event as benign as the Saturday Farmers Market could come and be located there, or it could be a big, DJ battle party or whatever. Nice thing about having covered space is that becomes 3-season space. You can use that a big part of the year round. We have a thunderstorm in the summer. Everybody knows what happens to business downtown. Business drops way off. Everybody runs out of town. Imagine if you had a place people could take cover. So I would encourage you to kind of approach the project, in a way that it works, for, I guess what the intended purpose we're saying is we want a central community gathering space, so things need to be at community scale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rose Pelzel. I live on West Herman Street. I grew up here, and before I was sort of an older teenager that was allowed to hang out downtown by myself, teenagers hung out at the Caboose. It was a very cool place to hang out, and then the Caboose left, and my cohort, we hung out at the Bench. It was in front of the soda machines between Tom's parking lot area and that little, area in front of the bookstore. And the people called the cops on us all the time. We were just hanging out on the street, on the sidewalk, and those complaints turned into our bench being removed. At the time, this is like 2008, 2009. I'm graduating high school. I go to Nonstop. My partner and my best friend did a documentary about the removal of the public sphere, right? The privatization of the public sphere. And at that time, I think it was the chief of police mentioned closing Short Street and making a public area. And I repeated that for years. When I was 15, I spent the summer in Bolivia, and every small town in Bolivia has a gazebo, and they have like traditions around teenagers hanging out at this gazebo. It's a space that's lit up at night. There's music, sometimes there's food. There must be teenagers in this town. I know there's fewer teenagers than there ever have been, but I want to invite them back into our space. They're scary, you know, but if we're not seeing them every day downtown, they're going to more seedy places. I personally, as a teenager, was like, but I could be going into the Glen and getting drunk, right? Like, don't you want me here? So I thank you so much for all the work that was done on helping us imagine what could be in that space. I think people have had a really hard time imagining what could happen, and I've been dreaming about this, and I know it's gonna take a while and investment, but I think it's a really great idea. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcia Walgren. I own Ohio Silver Company, the business downtown that's directly across the street from Short Street. And I know this was meant to bring people downtown, and with my business, it's done the opposite. And I'm a little disappointed in losing faith in village government, because first I was told it was an experiment to end after street fair, then I was told it could be reopened for the holiday business, and it wasn't. And we were told that no more events would be scheduled, and they were. And then we were told that at the last village council meeting about it, that the space would be closed at least until February, and that there were two options that would be examined. One was temporary closures, and the other was permanent closures. And it's been closed in the past for use. The village needs to do what they say they're going to do. And a beautiful plan was made for a village gathering space in Beatty Park, which is unused, and it had trees, and it has grass, and it could be made, there are entrances from downtown, and it could be inviting, and people could be brought in. It was going to have a pavilion, and it was also going to provide runoff for Keith's Alley, a provision for that. And I'd like that to be reconsidered, and I think wonderful things could be done with that. I would love to see benches throughout downtown that's where people gather, is downtown, and bicycle racks throughout downtown. When all the benches were removed because people didn't like the kids hanging out downtown, the store owners started putting out their own benches, and when there's people sitting on the bench in front of my shop, they come in. I've sat there all year. I've watched the use during the day, and there's been no use during the day. I mean, very, very, very rarely. The traffic change, the change in the pattern has affected us. And yes, I guess you could try to get people to stop going through Tom's, but the fact is, it was how people circumnavigated downtown, and it got to the businesses on Walnut Street and down back to Dayton Street. So if somebody comes in from the north and they looking for a parking space, they're going to try to go this way, and if they end up in a neighborhood they don't know, a lot of my customers say, you know, we just gave up. I'd like to see Short Street reopened. I'd like to see Beatty Park made into a gathering space. I'd like that to be revisited. That was passed by council, a beautiful plan was made, and the newspaper announced it was going to be enacted. It never did. I think that's a wonderful space downtown for villagers. I did talk to Jeff, who's the U.S. Bank president today, and he and I both sat, I really need to finish this. He and I sat on a panel for the McKee Organization's review, and he said he authorized me to speak for him today. He had to be at a conference with his kid for a baseball thing. Cedarville Bank, U.S. Bank, and Springfield's branch of the U.S. Bank have both closed. So that's brought 6,000 people to our branch of U.S. Bank. And so he said those people come here, they're shopping here, but those are the people they have to service now. And so what you've got is inconvenience, and he's had over 100 complaints. And you've got people coming in to give loans, to write loans. You've got people to, service 6,000 extra customers that come here. So I'd like you to consider them as well. That's all.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Amy Bailey, Yellow Springs School Board President and liaison to the Village Council. In October, Superintendent Dr. Terry Holden and Assistant Superintendent Megan Winston shared a statement with Council regarding the impact Short Street traffic has on Mills Lawn. While that statement was read in full at the January 21st community meeting, I wanted to briefly reiterate some of the several key points. As you know, the streets surrounding Mills Lawn have long presented safety concerns for students, families, and staff. For many years, our school personnel have had to monitor traffic coming from multiple directions during arrival and dismissal, vehicles traveling north and south on Walnut Street, cars turning to and from Short Street, and pedestrians using the crosswalk directly in front of the school and community foundation offices. This combination created congestion, confusion, and unnecessary risk during the busiest times of the school day. In past years, we've unfortunately witnessed several near misses between vehicles and pedestrians, often the result of distracted driving, speeding, and disregard for crosswalks. This concern becomes even more critical as we prepare for the addition of a district preschool in August 2027, which will bring even younger children onto the campus. Ensuring the safest possible learning environment for these students must remain a top priority. Since Short Street was closed to vehicle traffic this school year, we have seen a clear and meaningful improvement in both safety and efficiency. Traffic patterns are calmer and more predictable. While the closure does not eliminate every traffic concern in the area, it represents a meaningful and measurable step in the right direction. We respectfully ask that the village continue to work closely with YSPD when making decisions regarding traffic patterns surrounding Mills Lawn so that safety remains at the forefront. Beyond safety, we've also seen an unexpected but wonderful benefit. When school began in the fall, the Short Street space became a place where families and students gather after school to talk, play, and connect. This organic use of the space reflects exactly what a thriving community hub should be, a safe, welcoming place that fosters connection and belonging. Looking ahead to next school year, as our construction project nears completion, conversations have begun about improving school drop-off and pickup routines. Historically, Short Street has served as a feeder of traffic directly in front of Mills Lawn. Any reduction in traffic surrounding the school will significantly simplify transportation processes and further enhance safety. Our neighbors spoke loud and clear about the value of the Mills Lawn green space and the importance of keeping a school property in the center of town as the heart of Yellow Springs. We hope traffic decisions reflect the safest way to maintain that shared value. For these reasons, we strongly support the permanent closure of Short Street to vehicle traffic and the continued use of this space as a community gathering area. This decision enhances student safety, simplifies transportation, strengthens community connection, attracts young families, and reflects the values we hold dear in Yellow Springs. Thank you for your continued commitment to the safety and well-being of our children.
Thank you.
My name is Melissa Heston, and I've been a resident here in Yellow Springs since 2001. I have a business, a private training business. My family owns the Wynn's Cafe, a restaurant here in town who will be celebrating 49 years this next month. I'm also the caretaker of a 95-year-old mother who is still living single at home in her own space. She does drive.
Impressive.
I know. Thank you, Ohio. But I also happen to be the executive director of the Little Art Theater. We did do a big, huge community celebration on Short Street, which was a lot of fun. It took a lot of work. But I'm mostly here as an event planner and a community event planner. So the things that I look for when I'm planning an event are accessibility, things that Short Street provided us for the Little Art and that event was that it was centrally located. It was accessible to many people. I love seeing Max Chrome's drawings of how the sidewalks would be wider and that the whole streetscape would be the same level, and it would be a hardscape. We often are put in places where there's grass, and there's a lot of things that you can do on grass, but there's a lot of things you can't do on grass. So it would provide a space that would be hardscaped and accessible for more people to be able to do things. I caution, if you would go forward as an event space and a community space, that you put too many fixed things that can't be moved. I love the dance floor, thank you Max Chrome, idea. You do need a larger space for theater, for dance, for community gatherings or community eating, perhaps. But I do think that if we were to proceed, I hope we do proceed, there's a lot of opportunity there, that it is nice and open and accessible, that it's hardscaped, and that allows for a lot of opportunity. I do agree with Relita. I do think that we should go ahead and start that parking plan now. That's not even, that's a no-brainer, low-hanging fruit. I do agree with Matt Kirk. Let's solve the school pickup drop-off before, it gets too congested. I am a personal trainer, so I know behavior modification takes time. So we'll learn. Our brains are still malleable. We'll take different routes if we have to. But thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Zerbuchen, 48-year resident in Yellow Springs, and I'm asking council please to open Short Street. There are other places that we can have public spaces like the Beatty Park, the lawn of Mills Lawn. You could put a pavement there and have all of the events that you want to have in the middle of town. I agree with Mr. Kirk that parking and the Mills Lawn drop-off and pickup has to be looked at and worked on. I think you can with the new school opening up, that there are other options. But please, open Short Street. Tom's parking lot is not a good pass-through, and I am using it. So please, open Short Street. Thank you very much. And I commend Village Council and the staff of an excellent presentation. And I agree, Corey Street would be great for more parking. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the pauses are getting a little longer.
I have 1 minute left. Can I just say one other thing that I forgot? So for the Jones School, and I have personal experience with renovating old buildings. We've got the hardware store in the second building, the toy store, and whoever takes that over is going to have to do a lot of work, and it's going to take construction equipment to be able to access that, and it won't be good to have it on 68, obviously. So I meant to bring that up, but I think timing is everything too. If we're going to do major renovations, there has to be some consideration for that. That's all I have.
All right, we're walking a fine line here.
All these ideas are great. At the end of the day, though, it all costs money. You got to figure out how much money it costs, how you're coming up with it, identify your funding sources, all that stuff. That was probably more than one sentence.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and just as a, yeah, I think we gotta draw a line here at going back around. Okay.
I just have one.
Come say your one quick thing, and then this is the last one, okay?
And we're not doing it next time.
We're not doing it next time.
I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank the village manager for looking at parking. It's been a problem the whole 5 decades that I've been doing business, and I would really be grateful if we finally solve that problem. The other thing I wanted to say was, as far as the traffic pattern goes, downtown that it's changed. What we're seeing now, and we're right across the street, but what we're seeing is the traffic backed up from one light, which is Limestone, all the way down to Quarry when the lights. So what happens is you can't really cross at all. And what the Presbyterian Church is seeing is U-turns behind on Walnut, which she said she's never seen before. And what I've also heard is people going the wrong way through the bank entrance. So consider that too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anybody else? Yep.
I'm Donna Silvert. I've been here since 1972, so here we go. I feel really refreshed by this meeting tonight. I like all of the comments, discussion, and the feeling that you're really listening. What really stood out to me, I never thought about those teenagers, and I would love to see more of the teenagers downtown. Great idea. Also, yeah, accessibility. And I think you've heard it loud and clear. You got to pull in people who really know what accessibility is all about. I happen to work in that field, and really when Teresa Mayer, I was disappointed in myself that I had less understanding than I thought I had. So you need to pull those people in. I think you've really heard that. You've heard we need parking, we need to keep our kids safe. And personally, I want businesses to thrive. I think that this beautiful permanent space will help that. So, but great discussion, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, going once. Going twice. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. So I think if it's all right, what we'll start with is if there's kind of, without getting into every detail, if there are like sort of short answers, things that you're like, hey, I know that, got that, we'll do that. And then, does that sound okay to y'all? And then we'll come here and start talking? Okay.
Okay, so for Ms. Polly, that is ODOT can dictate 68, and the Fairfield up to this village limits. You'll know that because I had to remove a speed bump on Fairfield because half of it was owned by the county road, half of it was in the village. So it is the village council and manager's decision on opening and closing of roads inside the village. I go here. There wasn't a bunch of them that.
And no pressure.
No, data for use, I don't know, we do not have that for during the day on what it was used, just on the survey data. The backing up of 68, that could be actually a traffic light signal problem, so I can have security fence who does our traffic signals. If we see that to be a problem, we can retime that. Right now, they're automatic, they're not on drive loops. We went to an automatic system versus the drive loops to be able to allow the crosswalks to be used more frequently versus had to push the button all the time. There's a timing, so we could literally free up some time. And also during the school on the drop off, there is a delayed signal going south to allow the northbound traffic to make a left on the Limestone. And for the reconfiguration of Limestone and Xenia, I hear you. I am 100% on board with that. And I can have the engineers look at that as well because it is a dangerous intersection coming out. We did a traffic one-way pilot, if you remember, in 2019. Yeah, we ain't doing that no more. So reconfiguration, and we do have right-of-way on the south side of Limestone that we could use to do that, and maybe work with the schools to see if we can straighten up Limestone a little bit to make it a easier transition. But we can talk to Choice One and see if they have some other suggestions.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to get a little bit of input from council here, because I think there's sort of a question of how do we take a bite at this apple? Is it, are we trying to answer, have some final decision? Are we trying to talk, get an initial pass of questions? I assume everybody has a bunch of questions or things they could ask about. So I'm just wondering if any of you have a clear idea of what you're hoping of how we would take in all this information.
I'll just start with, this is just very broad brushstroke at this. Before going anywhere, to commend village staff for an excellent presentation, really. That was, I think, even to move this conversation forward, with the help of Max, we had to get kind of the stench of what's out there out of our kind of mind. And at minimum, that rendering and those photos in this presentation can bring this conversation to, I think, a place of just decency. Because I think what we're all working towards is, or want at least, is a vibrant downtown, a vibrant Yellow Springs, and an inclusive community. And I think that is what we laid the foundation of. Also, for me personally, just since this will be the first real significant vote, I think, for this new council, the three of us at least, definitely, that all of our decisions, or my decision, is going to be based on the now, not based off of past council's decision to open, to close, to not close, to postpone. I know that there was a lot of distrust in the process, not to throw shade at past council members or to staff, but I am judging this based off of the presentation, the vision and plan of today, and not taking any of this past kind of weight with me. So that's how I'm showing up for this decision, and then we can move forward.
I think everybody's probably a little stumped on how to do it, so would it be helpful to just do an initial responses, questions?
I kind of want to say something really quickly. I love how this community shows up.
Yeah.
I love it. Whether we agree or not, whether I'm losing hair or graying or not, I love how we show up. I love how we show up for each other. I would be remiss if I didn't let everyone here know that my mind is on what's happening to our Springfield neighbors.
Yeah.
And so that's helped me put things into perspective. We're talking about something way lighter than what's happening just right down the street. And that's helped, like I said, that's helped me keep things in perspective. I really am about this ableist stuff that we're doing. Now, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but a walker on uneven grass, it's not a thing. A wheelchair on uneven grass, it's not a thing. A wheelchair or someone that has ambulatory issues on grass, we all like grass, but it's not a thing. I'm trying not to, I don't want to go too far down that road, but a lot of the questions that I had in my mind about what the timeline was going to be like had to do with the aesthetic. It just did. I was like, this is really not a good looking thing. And I know that, we didn't have Max's design expertise on the outset, but we do now. And I really appreciate the use of the sun sails, the large planters. Those can be moved for snow removal, for construction. So we can't do anything permanent, speaking to Relita's point, because of the hardware store is not going to be, I don't want to say permanent, but we have to think about that. So before we spend I don't know, a couple 50 grand on bollards and stuff like that, that temporary thing has to happen before we get to the long-term thing. And what I mean by that is, those are things that we can do now to address some of those broader questions. That's what I got. That's what I got.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do kind of a round and kind of see how people are feeling, then we'll see if we can carve a path forward. Angie or Stephanie, do either of you want to share any thoughts?
I mean, I do. I'm probably a lot more opinionated, I feel like, about this issue than my other council members. But I think the process of this does matter. I think it's affected, it's created a divisive thing in the community itself. I have a lot of notes. I took a lot of notes before, like just this weekend, just going over your presentation beforehand. I mean, and I disagree with a lot of things in there. I disagree with, well, even down to how many parking spaces were lost. I know, I see, and I know, and I can see on the map the ones that weren't counted. But there were more like 10 spaces that were lost versus that. It's just little things like that, I feel like, that results and presentation has been skewed away from some actual realities. I'm a parent. You know, the safety issues matter to me. It's important to me. But I don't think that Short Street is the solution. I think too many times it comes up that these things are seen, these behaviors are seen, and nothing's done about them. You know, something that would make sense to me was to say that we've had less citations written, because otherwise that tells me that it's just been tolerated and not dealt with. You know, I myself have witnessed, I pay attention to a lot of things. I've witnessed, you know, the traffic backs up, now no one can turn off. You know, it backs up because of a different reason, because down at the end, you have to wait at the stop sign to turn, those cars can't turn right. You know, it just causes another different type of traffic jam on there. I mean, just, you know, just a lot of things, and I'm a big fan of the Beatty Hughes. I would like to know where those plans are, why that ball was dropped, you know, what those types of things are. You know, so I mean, I could sit here and have a whole conversation, you know, and take up a whole lot of time, but I have a lot of issues. The presentation was beautiful. I was not expecting to see such a sensational goal there. And again, I think it's, you know, what's our priority right now? Kind of go back to some things we talked about at that work session. Is this a focus that increases affordability? Is this something that focuses on the goals that we have right now? And I don't see it as one, you know, that's important, you know, yeah, financially, focus-wise, that type of thing. I think that all of this money that's been put into this could have been put into that plan that was made before that was already paid for. And here we've been paying for another plan, you know, all this time. There's no labor costs listed, which was something I specifically asked, like what were the labor costs that have been put into this thus far? And that wasn't in there. Labor's definitely always a significant cost when, you know, when you're doing anything. So I think that those numbers being left out are important also, you know, but, you know, I'll digress a little so someone else can speak, but, you know, again, I could keep going.
Yeah. Nancy, do you want to share any thoughts?
I have no thoughts about this.
Okay, no thoughts.
No. So I think I'm repeating things that were said so eloquently by the community. I think there's clarity that there are two action items that we're walking away tonight with. One is the safety of pickup and drop-off. That needs to be addressed. That has nothing to do for me after what I've heard these last months with Short Street. That needs to be addressed on its own. And I hear a lot of great ideas, and I hear a lot of feedback, and I hear decades of experience and ideas, and so we have a lot to do there. The other is we need more handicap parking downtown. I appreciate you saying we need to make those spots available for the people who need them. And if people need to walk an extra block, so be it. So it's action item number 2. And in the presentation, there was a lot of great work done. So especially, I think, with the church, those 4 spots, I think what I've learned is about what it means to put handicap parking on 68, so that solution is really compelling. I saw and I've heard from a few different people that one of the reasons why this conversation started was about having bathrooms on this side of town. To me, it feels like that is an important request that the community has made, businesses have made, and somehow we got off track from that focus. So it was, we want bathrooms, now we're going to close the street to have those bathrooms. The bathrooms that we ended up were porta potties. I understand, I've learned about the accessibility for people of those bathrooms. Also, if you have a 2-year-old. I was happy to see that it was in the presentation, and I also feel like that is an item that we perhaps need to look at creatively. So what are the other funding sources, or what are the other options for having a public bathroom that's not connected to Short Street or to this project, but is something that the community has stated that they want? I think I have a lot of concerns just about how to finance this project, and what we've heard about infrastructure means that there might be additional costs than the budget that was laid out. I think those are real concerns, and that ideally, if somebody was going to say, hey, I love this, I'm super passionate about this, I want to make this my mark on this town, and came to us with $1 million, I think we would all have a lot of great ideas about how to make it happen and how to manifest it, but I don't see that reality right now, which makes it feel difficult to jump into something. And as we're talking about process, I think this has been an interesting it's been an interesting case study of how I think there was community engagement, but then there was an early execution, and then a lot of steps came after it. So there was community engagement that we learned there are ways to do that on an earlier phase of the project, and also that I believe, the reception to all of this would have been different if we had Max's renderings early on, which are really inspiring. So to me, there's that question as well about both financing, planning, a vision, community engagement. What is the ideal order of all of these things to come together for something to be successful, for it to be backed by the community from the very beginning? And to Carmen's point, absolutely, it's amazing that you're all here today, and I think it shows the potential. Like, imagine planning this project from the very beginning with all of you in the room, laying out all of these concerns. I think we would be in a different place. So I think that is the rhetorical question there is, how do we do this again in the future with what we've learned? What's the involvement of the community, of council, to not get into this situation again? Although, I think great things have come out of it, and we've learned a lot. So I am absolutely for the vision, the dreaming, the potential, the teenagers having space, but there's what's possible, and what the dream that we need to work really hard to manifest, and there's what's directly in front of us. So that is what I will be voting on tonight, is about what's directly in front of us. But I absolutely believe in the potential of what we could do if our process happens differently, and the order of what needs to happen is different than where we are today.
Okay. So many good points from other people up here. I'll just try to kind of share the things that are top of mind for me. I'm nervous about the money. I don't know where the money comes from. So that's a question. I think the idea of taking some time and seeing, are there benefactors, are there donors, but just knowing where our village budget's at, it's a little bit hard to know where the dollars would come from. Which I guess sort of is interconnected with the ongoing constant problem of trying to prioritize, which is so hard because there's so much about this project that I'm like, this is awesome, this is great. There's so many things about it that are exciting. And I can't help but, find myself thinking, man, I'd love to spend this much energy trying to figure out how we address affordability, how we address some of the other issues that we're working on and that we've talked about. And so, yeah, it's hard to figure out where are the dollars going to come from. And, I'd love this to be a place where we can do as much both and as possible. So if there's, people out there that really envision these projects and can help, put dollars in, or if there are, grant funds and other things that we can find, I feel open to the idea of trying to figure out how to make it possible, but I guess I don't know, I feel stuck in the place of how do we get from where we are to where there's, what was like somewhere $700,000, $800,000. That feels challenging. And then echoing lots of the process questions and appreciating village engagement and trying to figure things out even when it's hard. So thanks to everybody on that. So I kind of, oh, go ahead, Carmen, you have to, yeah.
So I am, I think, at critical mass for stagnation. I think that everybody's kind of exhausted from it. I like the meantime in between time, which is what I saw last in Max's presentation. Because initially it's just like, okay, and it's going to take 5 years. Okay, what happens in the interim? How can we make the space a usable space within that time frame? And like, the budgeting thing is a thing. Of course, I mean, I'm not downplaying that at all. But I guess I'm just going to ask everybody, what about Max's interim renderings seem like an impossibility? Like it cannot happen. Like, what about what Max presented last, which maybe could have come first, seems like something that's not doable for the space? We've heard from the schools, we've heard from the police chief, we've heard from Rose. I was one of those kids too. Yeah, they were like, get out of here. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? Yeah. But I guess that's my question. That's my question to everybody. Like, what is it about the last rendering that seems like something that we can't do? Because we're looking at $780,000. Of course, like what? But what can we get some numbers on what that last rendering would look like? What would that take? Can we get some numbers on big gigantic flower pots that can be moved if snow needs to be? If snow needs to, but I don't want to be like, I don't want to be so rigid with this. And I think that we had some, this is not some junior flip architect. And also we have the, I mean, we're here now, and I would like to at least think about what it would be to move forward with that, with the not permanent it's so weird. So weird. But I don't want to belabor anymore because it'll happen. But just I want to do a temperature check on that.
So you mean that like in a sense of you say not permanent, but.
I mean, until we get to the $780,000 number, what does it look like in the interim, again, because this is where we are again, with the drawing, the last rendering that Max showed?
Yeah.
With the sun sails and the big pots. That's what I'm talking about.
But it remaining permanently closed, it just being temporary fixtures. Is that what you're
I'm
advocating
asking
for?
what, I'm asking what everybody thinks about that, is what I'm asking.
I think, Stephanie, do I understand? I think you're saying, do you like that interim, or that, that last option? And I think Stephanie's saying, as a forever option or as a interim until we figured something out option? And you're saying until we figure something out, is that right?
As an interim option.
Yeah. Does that answer your
I
question?
mean, because
I
we're
don't know how that
going,
moves us forward.
we're going for like that, and then we're going for that, and then we're going like to the $780,000. I think that spooks people out.
Yeah. So I think, tell me if I'm misunderstanding, I think we're talking, Stephanie, I think the question is if it was, I think,
Cheaper.
somewhat similar to the timeline that was listed, right? If it was an interim moving toward trying to figure out the long-term finances, how are people feeling about that interim, the last thing that Max showed? Is that, am I understanding
Sure.
correctly?
Yeah.
Does that clarify?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I kind of understood, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Already, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought.
No,
yeah.
you're good. I would just, I look at that, my reaction to that is going, so we're adding, the cost to put that in would be on top of whatever final cost if it's an interim situation, so that's just more money on top of that.
We don't really know because we don't have the numbers.
Right, oh, I agree with that, yeah. I think there's a lot missing from the numbers, but then I think that still leaves that, you're looking at a 3-year construction zone downtown, in addition to whatever may happen there with the buildings on the corner, construction-wise, and that type of thing. I don't know, so I mean, just a 3-year construction zone is wild to me,
And can I just on that point, just follow up real quick? Johnny, do you mind saying, if you can, is the 3-year timeline mostly about, obviously there's like an input period. I know I looked at that and I thought, well, if either we have the money and we could do it faster, or we don't have the money. Is there some other thinking around, I don't know if it has to do with the interplay of the construction or something? Is there something else that goes into the timeline?
No, it's simply a funding mechanism. We figured it a year to get the finalized plans of what we're going to be doing, but we can start fundraising. The biggest thing is if it's we're maybe going to do it, maybe not going to do it, we're going to close it, we're not going to close it, we can't even go for funding sources. To Angie's point, we got turned down for the permanent bathrooms because it was it may be, maybe not, or temporary, and they said, hey, when you get an answer, then come back for that funding. We did not show them permanent bathrooms because we had already sent that in and it got turned down. But there is a possibility for permanent bathrooms on that area as well. So to go to Carmen's point, the interim, we wanted to show what could be done. And we have a PAC committee. We have a number of artists in this town, so literally you could do some paint and call for the artists to be able to do their renderings on the ground. So you're looking at some large planters and some wind cells that are going to be installed by our village team on already existing infrastructure. The Porta-Johns could be a small thing that we could get donated for somebody to build around there if they wanted to. So the costs are minimal because we already have the tables, we already have the chairs, picnic tables. We're going to reuse what we have. The lighting's already there, so the lighting that Max had talked about, putting around the wind cells, we already have that. So it's a good answer to a permanent solution that would give us time to be able to fundraise. And if we got $1 million handed to us on January 1 of 27 and we had drawings ready, we would pull the trigger. But we got to have a permanent answer to be able to start looking for funding, collecting donations, going after grants and things like that.
Thank you. So now, were you starting to
Yeah, I mean,
respond to Carmen?
he jumped into it, but I think last time I didn't really put my position out there, at least some of the statements. I am very open to the concept of keeping Short Street closed because I know what it can be, the vision, the idea. I'm very open to it. What I'm not open to is keeping it closed indefinitely without a proven funded plan. And what I saw in the timeline and in the options presented from the financial said proven financial sources. And not to sound coarse, but they didn't seem proven to me. They were options. There were grants. They were fundraising. But it read to me as this was an informational, right? Like these are the ways that we can go about it, not the ways that we are going to get it. And so I think that was my cause for pause because I think my job up here is not to pass my opinion on an idea. It's on a proven plan with executable outcomes. And that's what the stewardship part of this is from a financial position. I am actually concerned about the finances. As we'll talk later, with Finance Committee and all those things coming down the pipeline. If we are to maybe reappropriate funds, then we get into a whole nother discussion of, is this actually the priority for funds as well? I can't answer that today. But I also know that I can't, in this position, keep our fellow villagers and communities waiting for the answer to all these questions while the street is closed. Something has to give. And right now, we are feeling the effects of a town square without any of the benefits of a town square. And the timeline, which makes sense to me, it does, especially from an economic development position that I have a background of. I know it sounds long, it's because it is long, but it's that way for a reason. But to tell my constituents that it's February of 2026 and the rest of 2026 will be towards exploring grants and fundraising and engaging the community, and then 2027 will be early infrastructure and preparation, and then 2028 will be initial phase 1 construction, that is problematic to me. Now, if we had the source fundings to cut through that timeline, I'm being as transparent as I can be. I love this idea. And if there's a way for us to work together during this 2026 vision and planning portion where we have it closed off now, if we can do that while it's open, my stance will potentially change. But as it stands now, I can't stomach the idea of simply having a planning period for another year while at the behest of the community. That is how I feel currently. And then lastly, if there are documented, and we've already kind of went through this, but as, again, someone who walks their kids to school every day at Mills Lawn, if there are documented safety or drop-off improvements, I don't want to lose those. But we should also be very honest about what caused those improvements, right? And if we need targeted traffic and school solutions, then we should address those directly, rather than relying on a downtown closure as the main tool, right? That is how I feel this. And again, I think that a revitalized and vibrant downtown is of the utmost importance for so many reasons. What I witnessed at the marquee unveiling, at the DJ battle, various nights throughout the fall and summer, was truly the first real, for hot button issue, someone who hasn't lived here their entire life, was really the definition of like intergenerational Yellow Springs and community. And I don't know if it can be replicated at Beatty Park. I don't know. But that's not the topic that's up for debate right now. Today's topic is Short Street. And I think there is still too many question marks that I'm willing to work through with staff to get there. But as it stands right now, I think there are still too many question marks.
I think this question of priorities is a huge one, and we're right at the moment of trying to double down on it. And I know that this council, after spending 7 hours together in this room, it's a shared priority because we want to see outcomes. and we want those outcomes aligned, towards a greater mission. And so, when I'm hearing about how this does take up staff time, applying for grants, working on it. So for me, there's a question of like, what do we want, what types of grants, and what do we want the staff looking at and applying for related to other topics that we've all been talking about, affordability, housing, economic development. So I don't exactly understand the full history of how Short Street was decided on as a priority. And maybe it doesn't matter because here we are, the 5 of us, sitting here getting to decide what our priorities are from now to 2029. So I think there is a question for me there about prioritization and aligning community's priorities, council's priorities, and then the limited capacity of staff and their time and their resources. I know you just said you don't want to talk about B.D. Hughes Park, but I'm just going to say one thing, which is, Rose, we should talk after. We should find a group of 20 teenagers. We should sit down and say, what would it take for you guys to hang out at B.D. Hughes Park? And if, we have these tables and chairs, picnic tables, lighting, music, a gazebo, that's another thing that's come out that I think is a really meaningful exploration, and that's also hearing, that it's not that space is not for everyone. It doesn't meet everyone's needs, but maybe we should explore those needs.
Carmen, I think to your question, I think how I respond to it is that I'm nervous about doing like a short-term thing without having the longer-term idea. So it doesn't feel like it's particularly challenging, or I think what Johnny said, it doesn't have to be that expensive to get to the interim version that Max drew.
Right.
But I think some of like what Sanai was saying like resonates with me on like, if we are going to do the short-term part, but it doesn't feel like we have a clear path to the long-term part, that makes me nervous. Yeah. So I've heard kind of a mix of things from everybody, so I'm not sure if I should like summarize what I think I've heard, or if anybody has an idea of here is a clear suggestion. There's a little bit of like, should we prioritize? Is there some work to be done in communication, collaboration with staff to figure out how to answer some of the questions that could be, anyway, there's a kick the can down the road past the priorities and goals option. There's a decide right now, are we going to leave it closed or leave it open option, or sorry, open it up or leave it closed option.
For temporary closure.
Or do a 6-month, there's the 6-month option. There's also I think we all know there's an option of open it and then close it on an as desired basis, as we have for other things in the past. Are there other sort of suggestions? I think those are probably the 3 options, right? Kick it down the road a little further, decide to open it, or decide to leave it closed? Does anybody else, so I'm wondering, should we do a round of like, here's where I'm at if I have to decide tonight, or you could say, I'd like more time to think about it?
I mean, I am prepared to make a motion to open it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
You've been the clearest one of all of
Yes.
us. Congratulations. Yeah. I don't mean to make fun of the rest of you.
Not for lack of not appreciating what could be there. Yeah. Just the process and priority is just not hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of anything that's not kicking this further down the road. I think not just because it is just a time wasting. I think we run into a real potential issue of it's February, come March, if the weather starts to turn, and then that sways decisions again, and then public trust dissipates again if we make a decision in a different way. I think we all know like the enormity of our vote and what we're trying to do, and we're prepared for the consequences that come with it and the weight of that decision. I think whatever it is, I support this council and I support the community. I think we should definitely temperature check and make a motion towards something permanent today.
So then, could I nudge you on if you're saying, I want to make a decision on permanent or not today, how you're leaning on that then?
Yeah. I am in favor of reopening. Of reopening Short Street as it currently stands, and working with the superintendent, the police chief, as well as any other interested parties in how to make the transition smooth, as well as with PAC, with the rest of the community on how to engage with them on how to do pop-ups for the Short Street for Short Street moving forward. I don't want to lose those 10 events. I don't want to lose sight of the community, such as the Hacky Sack community, who's taken. I want to make sure that all parties are heard. But as it stands today, I think I'm ready to move forward on a vote.
Okay. Carmen, do you, no pressure, but Carmen or Angie, do either of you have a where you're at right now kind of summary?
Kind of, in spite of everything that's happening and because of everything that's happening, what I saw and, was inspiring for a lot of reasons, especially with the more temporary solution or whatever, because it speaks to aiding with construction trucks, because that's going to happen, and we're going to have to close it for the construction, for the rehab of the buildings. And there's going to be a lot of activity that way. And I just, I envision that space like I have seen, in Ann Arbor, Michigan as a prime example. My brother is there, and this happened during COVID, and some of these spaces have remained closed, and they've been, the site of traveling art installations, really interactive, progressive stuff that I think that we could benefit from. There are a lot of things that can be addressed with the last slide that, that Max showed. I have to take into consideration, and yes, Tom's as a cut through has been used. I have been at the schools for pickup and drop off, and it goes more smoothly. Yes, you're going to have to wait and be more patient, but it does go more smoothly. People aren't cutting it out and trying to get, on and off Short, Xenia Avenue to Walnut. I do feel like there needs to be some better signage and some more presence, but that seems to have improved. So. No, I am in favor of, or I would be in favor of Max's second renderings. Until we get to, and so there has to be room for the interim. There has to be room for in-between time. There has to be room to find funding sources. If this would have been done a different way, then ideally the funding sources would be identified. There would have been a plan sooner, which Angie spoke to. We would have had renderings from a world-class architect on the outset, but that didn't happen. And here's where we are now. So I'm in favor of the the last thing that I think should have been first in the presentation.
I'm in favor of opening it. And I think in life, sometimes you're like, well, if we only knew better, I would do this differently. We can do it again, and we can do it better. So I think with that vote, I'm saying we actually can do this. Like, that can be a reality, but let's start at a different point. We're already at a different point. let's get our ducks in a row, and let's do it. So I think I'm struggling because I think that the dichotomy of this vote has been turned into either you're pro or con Short Street as a community space. I'm saying that I think we need a fresh start. I think we can do it. I believe we can do it. I think if there are the people here who want to see it happen and want to put in the time, energy, investment, finances to make it happen, it could happen. But I have a very hard time seeing us get there from where we are today.
I would actually be remiss, really quickly, if I didn't, this is burgeoning on demoralizing staff, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. And I've been here, and I've seen the work that's been done, and I've been here when you fielded phone calls, and I want you to know that that's not what anybody up here is doing.
No,
Second that.
yeah, absolutely. I would say, if anything, I thought that the resources spent on this pilot were very smart, very calculated. I think they were thinking about these scenarios so that that infrastructure, that equipment could be used again. And I also think, this did exactly what a pilot did in many ways, which is allowed people to visualize it, learn from it, and move forward. And so I thank you for saying that, Carmen, because that is absolutely not the intention. I think we're excited. We're even more excited by what we've seen tonight.
Yeah, I think, so I think if I'm hearing correctly, there's a few people that are leaning toward or saying they'd like to open, and then one talking about the last plan being first. So I feels like we're moving in that direction, and I echo a lot of what's been shared about the frustrating dichotomy, that it's like a one or the other. And I heard a lot of y'all communicating about things that were learned about how to go about it, and I feel like at the council level, so now you made reference to it earlier, from my perspective, as somebody who was on council before, the big learning is communicate earlier, identify priorities earlier, identify, alignment with goals earlier, so that it's less frustrating for all involved. I think if we catch those things faster, it goes more smoothly. I think I'm in the let's open it, and if we can figure out how to start it back up and figure it out, then let's do it.
This is where you make a motion.
Yeah.
Can I make one more?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've only been here 12 years, right? In my 12 years, we've seen active transportation that wanted this project. But I want to back up to the parking. This parking plan that I showed you tonight is not new to this village. It was pulled out of the comprehensive land use plan, and if it would not have been pulled out, because we had a couple people that come into the village and requested it to come out of the plan, we wouldn't be talking about parking right now. That parking would have been done. We'd have found grants. Choice One's ready to go for the grants. But now all of a sudden, we need parking again, and we brought back the same maps, and they're all beautiful. And council, this is the same plans that was brought to council 6 years ago. Mind you, I told you it took 4 years to build the multimodal path. The multimodal path took precedence over parking plans. We got funded like that. Why? Because council made the decision. So I like Carmen's suggestion about, hey, if we're going to keep it closed, let's do the short thing. Allow staff, allow Choice One, allow other people to join the team to be able to help find the funds. We can't just say, hey, I'm just going to say it, Dave Chappelle, come give us $1 million and we're going to make it happen tomorrow.
It was weird.
That's not the way we act. That's not the way that we do things. Staff is challenged. The Choice One is challenged. The Community Foundation is challenged. The Chambers is challenged. But we got to make sure that we make a decision. The parking plans, I have the parking cost. If anybody would like to know, $50,000 budget for South Walnut Street, $120,000 for Elm Street, $120,000 for Phillip Street, the $30,000 for in front of Beatty Hughes. Corey Street is about $75,000. That's $395,000 today's prices, not 18's prices. And 18's prices, that was about $150,000. So if we keep on pushing decisions that staff brings, that community members bring, I understand we have been trying this, and I'm on the fence. You know, I would love it to be a permanent thing, but man, parking, if we get parking, everybody's on top of parking when we come out of this meeting, it's still a win, but I don't know how you go back in 3 or 4 years and start this whole process over again when we could have started the process with a temporary, permanent, we got it, we're closing it, we're going to do parking, we're going to move forward, we're going to look for funding, and it's going to be great because we now have sunshade and things like that. So it's ultimately your guys' decision, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that, you know, 6 years ago, this wouldn't have been a problem. We'd have already had the parking done.
Can I clarify? Is the example that, like, in 6 years, we might be in this situation, being like, we should have approved
should have done it.
Short Street back then, and it would have been
Correct.
less
Because-
expensive, we would have had, we already had the presentation, okay.
Yeah.
So that was your only example about the parking?
Well, I mean, the parking plan, we wouldn't be talking about parking because everybody said, we got an abundance of parking. Let's go ahead and close Short Street down and make it a community
Okay,
park.
okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think we're dismissing
A question about that?
parking.
I mean, is it even a feasible thought to say, you know, as Carmen has said, look at what's possible in the interim as funds are raised and a build-out is conceived of and put into motion? You know, is it feasible that the council could say, yes to a permanent closure and this kind of a build-out, yes to the interim, you know, an improved space, and we're giving it 2 years for all of the funds to be raised, or some period of time, because the catch-22 is that staff cannot go after funding until council makes a decision. So it's very easy to say, well, you didn't bring us the funding sources, so we really can't say yes. Well, staff can't until there is a council decision. On the other hand, I get that council is saying, ooh, that's a leap over that one cliff. We don't know if there's mattresses down there or just some rock. So how are we supposed to do that? Well, if there are timeframes sort of put into place, you keep your space, you improve your space, you have a desired outcome, and if you can't get the funding to get there, well, then you decide you want to keep it permanently temporary or deal with the whole thing. But just wondering if there's some way to let funds begin to get raised, to see if it's possible.
Can I ask a question regarding the funding? Grants were put down as a major chunk of the funds that we'll be going after for this. For the restrooms, there was discussion that we had to preemptively close Short Street in order to even have the opportunity to XYZ. How many other situations like that do we know of definitively, and I mean like actually right now, that it takes us closing Short Street immediately in order to do phase, like the grants? Do we know that right now?
No,
or is,
I don't know that.
Because that would change, like, if we're saying that we have, like, it's because of this and only this, then that, but if it's not, then it still just kind of comes down to fundraising, back to the same
But
fundraising.
with grant funding, though, I mean, it is, there's an outcome. Like, this is what we're doing, this is the outcome, this is why you're going to get the money.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, it's not, well, we're maybe thinking about maybe doing a thing, and maybe we can get a grant, and will you give us a grant for this thing that we may be able to say that we did, maybe, or not?
Correct.
So yeah.
And correct me and help me out with this one. And so with this whole project up until now was considered a pilot program. which means that now we have, in some ways, some set of data and results and plans and renderings to go after grants with said proposal that we've had the information to go after now, right? That's my thought process, and I could be wrong, right? But the fact that we have now had from June till February, we've had data, we've had public input, we've had business input, we've had community feedback, we've had 2 councils take a shot at this, and now we have renderings from a world-class designer as well. I believe that that is a boatload of information to now go out and attempt to get the financing that's needed for this project. My apprehension currently, as it stands, is still the same thing, is this not a yes and thing, or is this a either or thing? And so my answer is still, yes, I want to do this moving forward, but I also need like the actual funding mechanisms ironed out. That is really the only issue that I have right now, because I think if this was done properly, if it was aesthetically pleasing, if it drew more people in, then places like Ohio Silver, places that rely on retail, actually the stance is potentially, I don't want to speak on your behalf, would welcome that type of change. They would welcome a community gathering space right in front of your location because it would draw more people in. But as it stands now, I still just want more. And I think that's the issue, is that we have a really good point of right now to move forward. But I don't know if it's continuing from the past, 8 months.
Judy, could you just restate what you said? Because you summed it up really well. And will you please? I mean, if you can nutshell it again.
Well, it's just the way that I was hearing it from the staff side and the council side. Council does not want to put a lot of commit a lot of funding without an absolute, we know that this is a value and a thing we 100% agree with and think is one of our values, and are willing to put a large amount of money towards. We'd rather know that we could put some money towards it, and that funding would be available for, major portions of it. And there's a hesitation on council's part to make that commitment, because we're not seeing that. I'm not seeing anyone out there going, I will, I'm giving you a whole bunch of money. From the staff perspective, staff are saying there are grants that, we could go after. There's funding that we could go after and think we have a pretty good shot at gaining if we had a decision from council that said, yes, we are committed and we agree that we want the space permanently closed to look this way, somewhat like this, by the time we get it built out. So that's the conflict.
So I think maybe one thing that would help me is it sounds like you have a lot of confidence about these grants. We're talking about it very vaguely as the grants. But I understand that I understand better now that you have specific grants that you think are applicable to this, that we would be very competitive for, or that we very much likely get. Is that right?
Correct.
And that is,
Some of it is with Greene County, some of it's with ODOT, some of it's with MVRPC and other funding sources, but we can't do that if it's maybe.
okay. So
That's
it's
what
not,
Judy's saying.
Yeah, so what Sanai's saying is that it's less so about the space being physically open or closed. If we leave tonight and we said, council's voted that we want to see this community space exist in the future, it's open in the meantime, we're going to support you in going for these grants?
They would want a closed date.
Okay.
They would want to know when council wants it closed.
Okay, but to be clear, that is a different kind of question, right?
Correct.
I mean, if we said we want to open it, if we get closure, if we get money, we've all agreed to close it. I mean, all of the transportation money we get is based on theoretically, if we can get the money, then we'll do the project, right?
Not always, but correct.
Okay, I mean,
So just
not
from the
always,
arts,
but
like,
often.
The arts, just from the arts perspective, if I was like, hey, Ohio, any Ohio Arts Council, we're a municipality and we want to do an art installation on a street that's that's I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, if there's no, we can't produce what the thing is going to provide or what it's going to look like at the end, then it's not a good risk. If it's like, I mean, obviously, but if it's like, if it's closed and we do the interim thing, then this is what it looks like now. This is what we want it to look like. These are the funds we're going after. This is the thing that we're starting with, and it's pretty awesome. It's already been engaging for the community. It's a place for people to gather. Kids and parents link up at Short Street. I know that. I don't know.
I think what I'm trying to figure out is there sort of a common ground on, I don't hear there being a common ground on leave it closed unless something has shifted based on the questions that were asked or the comments that were made. I heard most people saying, hey, I'm inclined to open it, with what seems like a sort of notable potential caveat, which is a bunch of interest and support in the idea, but a concern about closing it or leaving it closed indefinitely. So I think we could say, hey, we're interested in the concept. We want to do the concept. We have votes for the concept. Now let's go out and try to find funds for the concept. That would be a different thing than, and open it in the meantime. Open it while we go out and see if we can find the funds, but we've agreed that we want to do it. That would be an in-between solution, I think. Right? I mean,
Can I make a motion that we vote whether or not to open or close? Make a motion to vote on
I
it?
think anybody can make a motion anytime they want, so yeah. So you're making a motion, say it again?
To vote on opening Short Street?
So this is where, if there's not a second, then nothing would go past, just to say.
Are we waiting for a second?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a little vague. Are you voting to permanently reopen Short Street, voting to open Short Street pending funding?
I think that's where our frustration is coming in right now, right? The if then statements, and again, this is meeting 3 for the 3 of us, so apologies if we are out of order. If that's possible to do an if then, like, it's easy for me to say pending grant approval, we will close in. If that's a possibility, then maybe that's another discussion, but that's not what I'm hearing, that it has to be closed first then. Am I wrong on that part? Because if we were to say pending grant approval, then we will close within 6 months. But to me, those seem like just scenarios right now, unless I'm misreading, or if there's a way that you can clarify that, Judy or John, like Johnny, or anybody really.
I can't clarify.
I think it's definitely an option to do the cleanest thing if you're trying to raise money would be, it's closed, we've all agreed we want to do it, 100% of people in the community want to do it, and here's the plan to do it, and we're trying to raise money for it. That's the cleanest thing. There's other options in
How do I
between.
word that in a motion?
What's that?
I said, then how do I word that in a motion? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you need it specified, then, you know, I mean, I think we're all open to the idea. You know, I mean, and if it comes down to language, then, you know, I make a motion to open Short Street.
Until we close it?
Until we know if it's feasible, you know, yeah. I mean,
Does that answer your question, Sinai?
make a motion to open Short Street and pursue, you know, grants and funding, you
not a
know,
motion.
in the meantime, you know.
Is that Angie?
No, sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sit this motion part out because I think there's some logistics behind it.
Well, okay,
The
so
clerk had something to offer.
if I'm
Yeah.
hearing you, if I'm hearing you right, it seems like what most of you, anyway, would like to do is to say, well, I'd like Short Street to open, but for a select period of time during which we convey that we are fully moving forward with permanently closing Short Street if adequate funds are raised within X period of time. Staff, you have full go-ahead to go tell all and sundry that a decision to permanently close Short Street has been made, and that it has this kind of a timeline on it, which it's not great to give back grants. It's really not great. So it means a massive scramble. And then it means, okay, well, what happens then if we go, well, we got 80% of the way there, but you guys wanted us 100% of the way there. Now what? I mean, there will always be a lot of moving parts. So it seems like one of those deals where it's like, well, you're either having the baby or you're not having the baby. You hope the baby's not ugly, but man, you gotta go with it, one way or the other. There's no half baby. So it's kind of that's all I'm seeing is like, you gotta make a commitment at one point or the other, but I do hear that people would like the street open while, if there's gonna be a period of time before something nice looking can be in place. The rest of it is just gonna be a really hard decision.
Yeah, and then the other interplay for me, so I think we have an option to say, hey, we're supported if there's, if we can raise money for it. Then this next question that's interrelated is that the priority of where to spend our time, and how much time and money do we want to spend on that? So how much investment do we want to put into finding the funds? And it's like, if it's a relatively low lift, then it feels like then I think I'm in the, sure, give it a shot. But if it becomes this feels like it has become a major project. I don't know if it feels like we're done with this part, and then now it's just, hey, we've got the core data from the last several months, so now we can fundraise relatively easily. I don't know. We haven't figured that out. So I'm just going to try to do a quick run. I think you're pretty clearly saying, hey, I think we should open it back up, period. Sinai, I think I heard you saying, you were saying open it, but then you've also expressed some openness to, hey, if there was a fundraising plan, if we had a path.
Yeah,
so where are you at?
Irregardless,
yeah,
my vote stands with opening it currently. I am all in favor of a path forward, though, because I believe in the project. Now, I know that's just throwing a wrench into but depending on what our vote is, if the vote is to open or close, then my vote is to open. If my vote is to open and add in, with the caveat that it will close if we raise X amount of dollars, then that's also a financial question that we'd have to dive into the numbers before I can commit to that as well. So to me, it feels like, let me not go off feelings. Feelings get you in trouble. So yeah, we'll just take that for where.
Carmen, I think I heard you saying, I like the idea of keeping it closed and doing the
hybrid
interim plan.
Right.
That hasn't changed. Angie, I think I heard you saying you were on the open it up. Mm-hmm. Has anything changed about your perspective? Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is, and this is I understand you just want the clean open it, and I think some of us were just trying to figure out, hey, we're not saying that we want it to be that we aren't open to the concept, but that there's a majority of people that are saying, let's open it up, and then if we can figure out how to explore it, then we figure out how to explore it some more. I think that's what I'm hearing. Is that in line with where people are at? Or anything else that needs to be said? In which case, I'd be happy to make that, just to move us on. Could make the motion of that, the idea of opening it.
If you get the words right, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's open it, and honestly, it's just open it, and then it becomes a question of if we can figure out a way to, put together a plan for fundraising or a plan to how to approach it. honestly, I think it raises an interesting question, especially with the parking, of how soon is too soon to bring something back? Because like parking is fascinating, and I'll say there's several items here that I think we're all in agreement need to go on the issues to maybe prioritize. For sure. Along with the 1,000 other ones that we have. But the parking thing's interesting, because at least in my time here, Carmen, I don't know about your time, we've never talked about it, right?
Oh, yeah,
In your time we did? Because in my time, we never brought it back up, right? It died on the vine sometime before I came here. And so it raises the question of, how long do you wait until you bring something back before council, right? And I think the general answer is the new council.
The parking we have, but so the parking thing is not on the same page for me as Short Street.
I agree.
Yeah. I was just trying to identify that. I think we've all heard there are several topics that are, let's decide whether to talk about them.
So how do you make that motion?
Sorry, so the motion I think it's Stephanie's motion saying open Short Street.
And
right? Yeah,
there was a caveat with Judy. Now I'm open it and just close it, open Short Street, and then that's the end of it. Or do we put that until we close it, or until we move forward with the plan to close it? I'm sorry, Judy. Does that how does that motion sound? How does it sound?
Open Short Street.
Yeah.
How does it sound?
I mean, is it just?
Is it sound? Is it a sound motion? The motion is to vote to open
I think that if that's the motion and that's where you go, then I think you're basically saying, and we're done with this project. Because I think staff have run to the finish line, and you're like, well, listen, if y'all could just get a quick drink and go another 10 miles or so, we'll be interested in that. And they're like, we get you over the finish line here, you decide.
Yeah.
So I think if it's open Short Street, you're just done.
For me, I understand that, and I understand that if that's how you would respond to it, I can understand that. And that's not how I mean it.
Yeah.
Okay? So from my perspective, that kind of mentality of, we talked about it one time and now everyone hates it and now it's done, that's like I don't like that mentality. Well, I think I understand, I think there's an acknowledgement here. Part of the dynamic is that the process was clunky, right? There's a bunch of this that had we started in a different way, we maybe could have ended in a different way. And you've heard that from multiple people up here. So I think my perspective would be, don't assume that, hey, because something was said no to in this context, that then you say, oh, nope, we're never talking about that again. By that logic, I think there's a lot of projects that we would never talk about again, and that would be a bummer. Things come back around that were worth considering.
And I put words in Johnny's mouth
words.
there, but
I swallowed them though. So you know.
Which I did.
How's it settling?
Not settled.
What I meant was what I said earlier. If you have opened it back up and there's no way to go after that funding at that point. So that's why I'm saying.
And
But we just heard not that from Johnny. Johnny said that he could apply for funding even if it is open.
Let's put a. I'm gonna grab that.
Yeah, sure.
It's for a point of order. It doesn't work. It didn't work. So what's happening is what I hear is that we are not taking into consideration staff's time. So whether or not we intend to do that or not, that is of no consequence. What happens is, and I saw it with the LIHTC project, it was do this, no, oops, pivot, do this, no, stop, do this. And hours and hours and hours and hours and hours go into this kind of planning. And so when it comes to the dais, we have a lot farther to go with acknowledging the work that goes in before we make a pivot. So it's like, we want you guys to bring this fabulous presentation that didn't just materialize, and then it's just like, oh, you know what? We're not too sure. Okay, fine, but the buck has to stop somewhere, and we have to consider our leadership and how we are directing staff, and then I'm basically asleep. Like I'm sleeping right now. Like I'm basically asleep. Like this is.
Okay.
So can someone make a motion either way?
Yeah, I think there's a clear motion on the table.
Okay.
From Stephanie, and so I'll second it, given that I think that's where we landed. And I am hoping that this is not heard as I think there's some complexity here. I understand what you're saying, Carmen, and
Sure.
that's not the way I approach it. I think there's more complexity than
Yes.
what was shared, and so I hope that we can have room for, I think we've all learned a bunch here. I think we should have prioritized better and communicated better much earlier on. I think we all know that. Anyway, so there's a first and a second. And so are there any other questions about what the motion is before we would vote on it? The motion is open Short Street. There's a second. Any other questions? Okay, so I guess we should do a roll call on, that's historically on the complex things, right? Okay.
Sure. Pierce?
Yes.
Yes. Samir?
Yes.
Brown?
No.
Shu?
Yes.
DeVore Leonard?
Yes. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for hanging with us. Obviously, took a lot to get to this point and wanted to give space to talk it through. We have several other things on the agenda, believe it or not, and so I think the thing to do is to pause here and think about how to approach that. So,
I need to make a motion to take, I need to take a break
yeah, totally.
to recess.
Before we take a break, can we just talk real quick about, do we want to, how many of these things can we punt versus, like, do we want to take a break and come back and do this stuff? Or do we want to just leave?
Take a break.
Yeah, we need to take a break.
Okay, so 5-minute break and then come back? Can we do a recess for 5 minutes? Okay, motion to recess?
Yeah.
Do we have to do anything else? We have to vote on or anything?
Nope.
Okay, 5 minutes, come back. Do I make a motion to go back into session?
sorry.
Okay, everybody.
Amy's-
You just say we're back.
We're back? Okay. So we're back, and we're going to try to power through here. So next up is manager's report. Johnny, go for it.
There is none.
There is none. Cool. Easy as that. Are there any questions on the manager's report?
Nah.
Okay. The next thing is old business, of which there is none. So then we're going to move on to new business. So board and commission seat assignments. So this was basically going over what we talked about at the retreat. So I'm going to just pull up the,
Well, but if you want this,
yeah,
this has it all, it's all redlined in. Is that what you got?
yeah, that's the same one as the packet, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to rattle these off really quickly and just make sure there's not any changes, because Judy said we should go through every one of them here, okay?
For board and commission?
For board and commission, yeah. So it would be planning, myself as liaison, Carmen as alternate. Environmental Commission, Carmen as liaison, Angie as alternate. PAC, Carmen as liaison, Stephanie as alternate. Library Commission, Angie as liaison, Sanai as alternate. Finance Committee, Sanai and I. That has a nice ring. Okay.
Lot of mercy.
We already did, oh no, sorry, and YSDC, yeah, we already did YSDC. For active transportation, Stephanie Pierce would be the liaison. We already did Greene County and Miami Valley planning. I think that's all of them, right? So is that, everybody still good with what we talked about before? Any flags or questions?
The school liaison, did you
Yeah.
mention that I offered to do? Like the YS school liaison?
Yeah, I don't think that was mentioned.
I don't know why it's not here, but yes, great, thank you. Good
Because
catch.
it's not a,
It's not a council.
It's not like an
Maybe,
official
okay.
commission or whatever. Okay, cool.
Okay.
But good to know.
It is worth noting, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So some way to flag someone, that's the, yes. All right, and we didn't need to make a motion on it, so everybody's clear on what we're doing, and I'm gonna move us to the next thing. The draft village values. So I think this one, I kind of feel like we should just put this with goals. We talked about it at the retreat some. I feel like it's pretty much only wordsmithing from here. This feels like the last minute to be doing wordsmithing, so are we cool with bumping that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay? The next thing is retreat follow-up. The very short version on retreat is that it's online. It's long, but if you're somebody who's like super engaged and really wants to know how we're moving and thinking about things, I'd really recommend watching it. We talk about some of the things around commissions. We talk about some things around rules. We talk about some things around just sort of how we're working together and process and priorities and how we think about engagement with staff and the community, and then talk some about values and sort of strategic screens that'll lead into our conversation around goals. So that's the super short version. Anything that I missed that anybody would want to say? Okay. The next thing up is nominations. So I will start and nominate Stephen Green, who has been on the Planning Commission, whose information I think is in front of you with some of the papers in front of you, and would like to continue serving. So I'm making a nomination for Steve Green for Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
Great. And can I, all in favor, is that okay? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you, Steve. Carmen, I think you're up on nominations.
Yeah, I have two. Brian Gibson for the Environmental Commission. He's interested in managing the community gardens. And also re-upping and nominating Joanna Schultz Herman for Environmental Commission. She served already and is interested in continuing to serve.
Great. And do we have to vote on both of them, or can we do them at the same time?
You know what, I would do them separately just in case, because you've got one returning and one coming in
Yeah,
fresh. so-
Brian's fresh.
Okay, so I'll second the nomination for Brian. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Great. And then Carmen made a nomination for Joanna to continue. Angie second. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Let that be a lesson. We can get through new business very quickly if we so choose. Okay.
Motivated.
The next, or business in general. Okay, so the next thing is future agenda. At the risk of opening the can of worms of what we talked about at the retreat, just to get clear on how the work session and/or the goals fit together. So I think where I landed the retreat was that we were going to start a work session on the goals at 5. Then we were going to pause at 6, normal posted time, and do a regular meeting, but that we're all expecting to be a pretty short regular meeting. And then we would go back to the work session on the goals after that, that the goals would be in new business or old business? It would be on the agenda.
Yeah, I actually have them as the resolution, but I can just, they can move to old business on the agenda, and you can wrap them up, and then the resolution can come on the second.
You said that, I'm sorry. Say it one more time.
So you do your work session, you don't get all the way done.
Yep.
You go through your regular agenda, and one of the items on the agenda is village goals, and it's under old business. And you pick up where you left off at the work session, and you finish it up, we hope.
Okay.
And then the resolution comes on March 2nd.
Okay. Okay. Does that sound okay to everybody? Great. And then the other interrelated pieces, just for people in the public too, just to remember, is figuring out what's next on the Housing Commission Committee conversation, and then we just kicked the values too. So there's some agenda planning work to figure out how all these things layer, and so that we don't have a super long meeting again, right? And then, go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is the right place, so apologies if this isn't, but like Johnny, you had mentioned the speed bumps, and we talked about it last time too. Could you provide like a update in that in the manager's report?
Yes. I think that was appropriate, because if he said no, then it would be a future agenda question, right? If you wanted to go past that. So then I think what was the day we said we were going to try to send goals in by?
Thursday, I believe.
Thursday.
Of this week?
This week. Yeah, Thursday.
So Judy, do you mind sending out an email just to remind everybody and share the ones from last year? And
The
yeah,
other
good.
thing too, and I'll send this out tomorrow, is I need to redline the current goals that we have, that we've been working on.
Yes.
Sort of where we stand with
Right.
those, so that
Okay.
we can sort of figure out what we keep or don't keep moving
Yeah.
forward. Yeah.
And just as a reminder, we were talking about trying to communicate 2-year goal. It could be something that's done within 2 years, but, right? Isn't that where we landed? We're trying to move toward clarity on the next couple of years as opposed to just right now, so that we get into longer term thinking. Okay. And then everything is going to get sent. Then Judy's going to work with Elise on collating it in the way that we'd had them last year, and then Elise is going to facilitate us trying to hone in and make decisions. And so then we'll talk on agenda planning about the timing. Is that what everybody's expecting?
Yeah, I don't know if it's in now that we're kind of just trying to wrap this up. I don't know if this would be manager's report or just as we're talking about economic development and everything that's happening around us, a status of where we are with the vacancy. I think the zoning, Meg's old position. it makes a big difference in how we move forward. So if we can move that, I don't know where it fits, but if we can start that conversation.
We were hoping to get it posted sometime this week, if not early next week.
And, all right, we can talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like that might be a manager's report conversation. If you have input, you have questions, reach out to Johnny. Okay, any other, I think that was clear on the goals stuff, right? Is there anything else that we need to just
I
get
think it's
clarity on?
clear,
with the
and I'll
work
get with Elise, and then we'll get stuff out to you with a reminder about when it needs to come back for getting
Okay.
processed for the next packet.
Okay, so then rules will come back, but as a first, not a second, with the conversation that we had. Anything else that you don't see on the future agenda that you want to?
We need approval for choice one contract for the 17th for engineering for the stormwater for Fairfield, for the OPWC grant.
Wait, the one you're just applying for?
No, we got the grant, and now we got to sign the contract for engineering. The funds become available July 1.
And that's different than the Safe Routes to School thing? Is the one that's at the bottom of February 17th,
Safe
is that
Routes
the
to
Safe Routes to School? Okay.
Yes, and there's some changes. I will send that out to council prior to.
I just need
Yep.
wording.
Any other future agenda?
Yeah, I mean, we talked right now about school safety, pickup drop-off, and parking. So is that something we take back and work on, or do we try to?
That's school.
Okay.
That's village.
Can you say them again? You said school safety, what?
Handicapped parking downtown.
Parking downtown, and then I guess I would argue parking, the other parking besides going downtown. Where I'm at on those is that it would be like, bring it up in goals
Okay.
if it feels like a priority to you.
Okay.
I think we're like right at that precipice, so rather than like talk it out at,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think. Does that make sense? Okay, any other future agenda? Okay, then a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
You guys laugh at my second? Why did you laugh at my